Chapter 281. You and I are probably the only people left in this world who can still speak this language. What are you still worried about? Seeing his flickering eyes, the girl chuckled. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing sighed. He looked straight at the girl and said, "Can I trust you?" He asked this. Actually, he was a little more relaxed because he also wanted to know his background. Although this girl probably didn't know what he was, she should at least know the reason, right? Of course. The girl smiled very happily. She hadn't spoken for dozens of eras. Being sealed in the Xian crystal had made her so bored that her hair was about to grow. Now that there was someone who could speak the same language as her, she had to say a few words. Yun Nuoshing sighed. He slowly told her what he had said countless times. After hearing this, the girl fell silent. Her beautiful eyes stared straight at Yun Nuoshing. She didn't give any response. No one knew what she was thinking. Seeing the two of them fall silent and look at each other, the crowd was a little confused. They looked left and right. They didn't know why Yun Nuoshing, who was a little helpless and sad just now, had fallen silent at this moment. Only Xian guessed that Yun Nuoshing must have told the girl about him, even though he couldn't hear what they were talking about. "Hey, do you know which era I'm from?" After a long time, the girl chuckled and asked. Yun Nuoshing was stunned. He thought about what she had just said. After thinking for a while, he said, "The Dark Era? Or the Ancient Era?" I'm not sure which era you're talking about. However, what era did you define as the first era of the Great Yuan realm? The girl shook her head. She had never heard of these definitions. From the birth of the Great Yuan realm to the 40th era, it was the legendary mythological era. The next 20 eras were the Dark Era. The next 20 eras were the Ancient Era. Then it was the Ancient Era, the Ancient Era, the Ancient Era, and the Ancient Era. After that, it's now, Yun Nuoshing said after thinking for a while. Has it been so long? I slept for several dozen great eras, one era after another. When she heard this, the young lady sighed, feeling a bit sad, a bit sorrowful. When she was born in a large country. Back then, the God realm was different from the present. It was divided into countless empires of various sizes. She was now in the Divine Prefecture. Back then, the Divine Prefecture hadn't been divided into 5 regions, so there was only one region in total. The 4 origin regions of Taiji, Heaven, and Earth were still called the same names, and hadn't changed at all. The young lady's name was Lan Xen. In her country, she was a princess. Her father was an important member of the royal family of the empire. He was the founding father of the empire. Although the empire didn't exist as long as other empires, it was still very powerful in the Divine Prefecture. When she was 18 years old, her soul was extracted by her father. She watched him tearfully seal her in the black crystal and then hide her in the dark underground. What happened after that was a little fragmented. She didn't know what had happened. She only remembered one time when she came out of the ground and saw that the entire world was dark. The world of the gods seemed to have been torn apart. The world was in ruins, and the earth seemed to have been scorched. There was a foul smell of smoke in the air, and an inexplicable energy drifted between heaven and earth. Even the starry sky was dark and lightless, with only 1 or 2 stars illuminating it. Only then did she see the appearance of her surroundings clearly. There was an endless black wind blowing between heaven and earth, and the space shattered at the slightest touch. "This is the great samsara," Ziyi exclaimed when he heard this, scaring Yun Nuoshing. "What is the great samsara?" Yun Nuoshing was shocked and asked hurriedly. She had heard this term many times and knew that it happened once every 20 years. But she didn't know what it was. Ziyi was silent. After a long time, he said, "There are some things that you'd better not know first. Continue to listen." Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing was confused, but she didn't say anything. Since Ziyi said that she couldn't know, then she wouldn't know first. After the young lady came out of the ground, she wanted to find her family. However, no matter how long she flew on the ground, she couldn't see anyone. There was no vitality in the world, and even the sun in the sky was dim. Later, she saw a faint light in the distance. However, the energy provided by the holy grade Xian crystal was limited, so she couldn't go there. She had to go back to the depths of the earth. When she went back, she found that the so-called burial was just a small pit. It was only a few meters above the ground. She remembered that her father had buried her in a very deep place. After that, I don't know how many years passed in the blink of an eye. I've seen people more than once, but their clothes are different from yours. No one can understand what I'm saying. So far, you're the only one who can understand. But I vaguely know a few things in the past. I've been sleeping for a very, very long time. It seems that my father extracted my soul back then because he wanted me to live, right? The young lady's eyes dimmed when she said this. Her father wasn't the only powerful person in the world. There were many opponents in that country. According to this calculation, he might have passed away in the years. They shouldn't be able to reunite. You also don't know which era you're from? Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing was a little depressed. Even Ziyi himself couldn't tell which era this language was from. He had hoped that she could know. There was no aura of the great samsara left on the Xian crystal that Ziyi had mentioned, so she couldn't deduce it. I should be able to deduce it, right? Just barely? The young lady touched her head and smiled cutely. Then, she fell silent. After a long while, she said, "Well, how long has it been since that thing?" "That thing? What thing?" Yun Nuoxing was at a loss. That thing. That thing. Lan Xen frowned. She seemed to be very anxious. "Don't worry. Think about it slowly." Seeing her like this, Yun Nuoxing couldn't help but persuade her. "Hey! Well, there's a stone appreciation convention in the Divine Land. Is there anything else?" The young lady patted her head and smiled in surprise. Yun Nuoxing was stunned. He didn't know either, so he had to ask. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They looked at each other and seemed to be a little confused. The Stone Appreciation Convention she mentioned, is it the Stone Appreciation Convention in the Crystal Sorcery Realm where only those with profound attainments, or even those who are going to be Heaven Meridian Masters, can enter? Yuan Shao touched his face and asked. Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing expressed that he didn't know, but he still told the young lady. "It seems. I don't know. I only saw a group of old men surrounding me and looking at me. I saw that they were all looking at me with ill intentions, so I fought my way out. Many people tried to stop me on the way." Lan Xen shook her head in distress. Thinking about this matter, she still felt a little angry. "Fought them out?" Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing smiled bitterly. This young lady didn't seem to be someone to be trifled with. She could actually fight them out. But it sounded like it was the case, so he quickly asked. "The Stone Appreciation Convention is still going on, but it's a little different. This Stone Appreciation Convention has been going on for 2 or 3 years. I can't tell how many times it has been." At the end of his sentence, Yuan Shao clapped his hands and shouted. He looked at Lan Xen as if he had seen a ghost. In one of the Stone Appreciation Convention, it was said that a divine lady was cut out. She was in a spiritual state and spoke a language that no one could understand. In the end, she broke through layers of blockades and escaped from the hands of hundreds of God and underworld experts. Could it be her? As Yuan Shao spoke, he kept stepping back. Yun Nuoxing was stunned and translated again. "It seems to be me?" Lan Xen was a little uncertain, but it seemed to be her. Yun Nuoxing was stunned and translated. "Damn! It's really her! That divine lady! My God, it's been a whole era! It's passed down from the previous era! This is big news!" Hearing this, Yuan Shao's good friends shouted and kept stepping back, as if they had seen something terrible. Yun Nuoxing tilted his head and translated, "As long as an era." "Only an era? Let me do the math." Hearing this, Lon Exien counted with her slender fingers and said, I was born in an era. When I woke up, it was 2 eras. When I woke up again, it was 3 eras, 4 eras, and 5 eras. So, it's the 6th era now? When Yun Nuoshing heard the girl's soft voice, he was scared to the core. His handsome face turned pale and he screamed, You're a myth. You're a god? You're a person from the mythological era? Didn't that era turn into ashes and nothing was left behind? The relic of the Tsangyan meteor that he saw last time was only the tomb of the Almighty God. When the crowd heard his scream, they quickly covered their ears. They didn't know what shocking news he had heard. Hey! What mythological era? Hearing this, Lon Exien looked at him blankly and didn't understand. I'm not sure. It's just that I can't tell if I woke up in the same era or in 2 different eras. I just saw that those people were dressed differently. Yun Nuoshing was speechless. He slowly told her about the current world. Of course, he didn't neglect the fact that the mythological era was almost a legendary era. I don't know. Every time I wake up, I don't stay awake for a long time. I don't know how much time has passed. I don't even feel it. Lon Exien sighed. She couldn't hide the loneliness in her voice. Being born in a different era might be a kind of sorrow for her. I remember a saying. Together with the mythological era that you mentioned, I think I know why you can understand what I'm saying. Lon Exien looked at Yun Nuoshing and suddenly understood. What? Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing was stunned. He quickly pricked up his ears. When I woke up for the 4th or 5th time, I saw it in an ancient book. Although I can't read, I can still feel it with my divine thought. I saw a message about the mythological era. Lon Exien thought for a while and said, the ancient book said that in the mythological era, countless deities were born. The blood of the deities was very precious. As for what it could be used for, I don't remember. I only remember a word. What word? Yun Nuoshing was a good listener. When he heard her stop, he quickly asked. The descendants of the deities. The descendants of the deities. Yun Nuoshing repeated. He didn't know what this word meant, but he vaguely guessed that it should be referring to the descendants of the deities. Yes, the descendants of the deities are born with the language of the mythological era. They don't need to learn it. Normally, they don't necessarily know that they know this language. Once someone uses this language to communicate, it will be reflected. Lon Exien nodded and said with certainty. After hearing this, Yun Nuoshing only felt that it was a bit ridiculous. He was actually a descendant of the deities? That's impossible, right? It is said that people who inherit the bloodline of the deities, whether it is cultivation or learning anything, can reach the sky in a single bound. Even their physique will become very special, or they will be born with an abnormal physique. Lon Exien racked her brain and finally stopped. She couldn't continue speaking. It seemed that she had forgotten all about it. Little star, I think it suits you. You can reach the sky in a single bound. You don't need to learn swordsmanship. You speak the language of the mythological era, and you have the most mysterious divine body of the deities. You see, it all fits. Before Yun Nuoshing could deny it, Zai laughed out loud, which made him feel a little speechless. He could not explain the sword technique clearly, but the cultivation was because of the use of external objects. He really did not believe that a person who fell from the sky would have any blood relationship with the god of the most mysterious era. That's all I know. Now, can you let me out? Chapter 282. Let you out. Yun Nuoshing looked at her suspiciously. She scratched her head and hesitated. Yes, I've been asleep for too long. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 eras have passed. I don't know what's the point. It's rare for me to meet someone who can talk to me in this era. I don't want to sleep anymore. Lon Exien nodded and said softly, Every time I wake up, I don't know when I'll fall asleep. How can I let you out? Yun Nuoshing was stunned. She looked at the holy grade celestial crystal and her face darkened. It looks so hard. I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't have to wait for someone to let me out. I would have gone out by myself. Seeing his helpless look, Lon Exiner smiled bitterly. If she had a way, she wouldn't have been trapped for so long. He sighed. He had no other way. He could only wait and see if someone else had a way. However, before he could ask, Ziyi laughed in her heart. Little star, it's not impossible for you to save this girl. The sudden laughter stunned Yun Nuoxing. From her words, it seemed that there was a way. She quickly asked, Do you have a way? Yes, I do. Ziyi chuckled. She suddenly changed the topic and said, But is it really okay to do this? Nuan? I mean, can you really trust this strange person? Are you not prepared at all? Aren't you afraid that she's lying to you? Just to get you to let her out? Ziye's voice suddenly carried a hint of sharpness. Unlike her worries, Yun Nuoxing laughed directly after hearing this. She laughed a little heartlessly and indifferently. She said, I've said that I'll give people a chance to trust me when I meet them for the first time. No matter what the consequences are, I'll bear them. Besides, why would she lie to me? Is there a reason for her to lie to me? Why don't you just say that you're too lazy to question people? Ziyi said. Yun Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. She felt that it seemed to make some sense, but she couldn't refute it. She simply ignored it. Sigh, just take it as it is. Now, tell me how to release Exiner. You're already calling me by my name. Ziyi suddenly teased, causing his face to turn green and white. All right, I won't tease you anymore. After laughing for a while, Ziyi stopped. He put on a serious face and told Shi Yan the method. Just use the soul. The soul energy is preserved in the black crystal, so it can pierce through the black crystal. Upon receiving this information, Yun Nuoxing rolled her eyes. However, she did not hesitate and directly split her soul out. Little boy, what are you doing? Yuan Qian couldn't help but ask when she saw his soul split out. Why did he suddenly reveal his soul when they were talking so nicely? Yun Nuoxing waved her hand, and the humanoid shape of her soul reached out to the glazed crystal. Are you crazy? You want to release her? Seeing this scene, Yuan Shao was scared out of his wit. He was about to stop him, but was stopped by Yuan Qian. Sixth uncle, let the little boy go. He should have his own plans. Yuan Qian stood in front of Yun Nuoxing and shook her head at him. Although she didn't have much confidence in her own words, she trusted Yun Nuoxing from the bottom of her heart, so she stopped Yuan Shao. Sigh. Little girl, you do as you wish. Being stopped by Yuan Qian, Yuan Shao scratched his head helplessly and said in distress, If anything happens to her after she comes out, I can't stop it. When everyone heard this, their expressions changed slightly. Thinking of what he had just said about the stone convention, they felt a little uneasy. However, when they saw Yuan Qian's expression, they couldn't really say anything. Moreover, they also wanted to see what Lon Exiner would do after she came out. His arm reached into the glazed crystal without any hindrance. Yun Nuoxing reached out to the young girl and said with a smile, Come here. The girl was stunned and looked at Yun Nuoxing with a little surprise. Although she had only lived for 18 years, but after so many years of accumulation, she didn't sleep for nothing. Naturally, she knew a lot about how to deal with people, but she didn't expect that he would pull her out so easily. You! Lon Exiner was stunned for a while. Just when she was about to speak, she was stopped by Yun Nuoxing's words. You said that we might be the only two people in the world who know this language. Why are you hesitating? Yun Nuoxing said with a smile and reached out his hand. Lon Exiner was speechless. She was choked by her own words. Looking at the excessively white hand, she was a little sluggish, as if she couldn't believe it. After sleeping for so many years, she could finally be free? Come on. Yun Nuoxing still said with a smile and reached out his hand a little more. When Lon Exiner came to herself, she put her small hand on Yun Nuoxing's hand. Suddenly, she pulled her hand back. The pure Mei Mao looked at him and said, What is your name? Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing was stunned. Then he realized that he didn't mention his name when they were talking about him. Yun Nuashing. Call me Nuashing or Little Star. You can call me whatever you like. Then, I will call you Brother Nuashing. Lon Xian thought for a while and said with a smile. What? Yun Nuashing was stunned. He opened his eyes wide and looked at her in disbelief. His face trembled and he said, Well, you are much older than me. Why don't we talk about seniority? In the end, he muttered in his heart, I am afraid that I will be beaten to death by Ming. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Hearing this, the young girl ran her fingers through her hair and said with a smile, I have only lived for 18 years. You are older than me, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to call me that, right? Also, I will call you whatever you want me to. I am the youngest in the family, so I am used to calling you brother. Can't I? Brother Nuashing. Chapter 283. The news of the stone gambling in the Qi family is soon spread. Yun Nuashing defeated Xia Ning. Everyone is speechless. They all take a cold breath. They have seen Yun Nuashing's capability. In the past half a month, he was preaching in the stone workshop. He seemed to be a master. However, the master that everyone thought highly of was defeated by the unknown former. How far has he improved his crystallography? Can he be a Tian my master? However, some people who have seen Yun Nuashing's work spread the news. He is not a Tian my master and his means are totally different from that of a Tian my master. However, he didn't hesitate at all. He cut the stone neatly. A future Tian my master. Now, in everyone's heart, Yun Nuashing is labeled as a Tian my master. Many people from different forces know that and want to make him a VIP. A future Tian my master has unlimited potential. It is unknown how much he can bring to a force. However, judging from the appearance of the Scarlet Cross, it can't be a small amount. It can be said that if a force has a Tian my master, it is equal to having a super storage room. They don't need to worry about the lack of energy in the future. When the result of the bet is known, almost half of the people in the city want to vomit blood. In the other game, most of the people bet on Xia Ning. However, the winner is someone else. The one that suffers the most serious loss is the gambling city. The odds are as high as 1 to 499 now. The gambling city has the urge to close the door. People in the gambling city nervously stare at the door. They don't even dare to breathe. They are afraid that there will be an old and beautiful woman in white. Now they all look very embarrassed. They turn pale and then green and then black. They feel so uncomfortable as if they have swallowed a dead fly. Because, in this game, Yuan Qian bet 1 billion on Yun Nuashing. Even the crystallography master bet 10 million on her. So, they will have to pay nearly 500 billion, which is equal to 2.5 million kilograms of Xian crystals of immortal grade. Such a large amount of money is enough to make some first-class forces vomit blood and suffer a great loss. Though they received a lot of money from Xia Ning in the gambling that day, compared with such a large amount of money, it is nothing. It is even less than 1%. With such a compensation, they will almost go bankrupt. They feel sad and hurt all over. They almost vomit blood to express their grief and indignation, just as the people in the gambling city were about to close their doors and avoid the world. The elegant and beautiful figure and the old figure finally walked through the gates of the gambling city at the same time, causing the atmosphere in the gambling city to drop to the freezing point. Yuan Shao, the divine underworld expert, also came along with them. He emitted a faintly discernible pressure, causing the people inside to pale in fright. They didn't even dare to say a word. This was simply using power to oppress people, so they had no choice but to pay for it. The owner of the casino was also alarmed and hurriedly ran out. However, he was only a god king and was far weaker than Yuan Shao. He broke out in cold sweat as soon as he saw Yuan Shao. His defense was shaken and dispersed. He hurriedly squeezed out an ugly smile and greeted him. However, in his heart, he was cursing the 18 generations of Yuan Shao's ancestors. They surely come to take the money. He surely knows that. However, it is such a large amount of money. Though the gambling city has been in Divine Sky City for a long time and has accumulated a lot of savings, if he gives it away, he will lose all his savings. Because of the pressure from Xunming, he has to accept it. He can only pinch his nose and reluctantly and angrily give the money to them. He sees the three of them, especially the woman in white, happily walk out of the door. The owner of the gambling city feels that his heart is broken into two halves. He feels cold. I want to check the fraud. It must be a trap. After Yuan Qian and the other two left, the gambling city was filled with shouts. That was the savings of many years. They were unwilling to hand it over just like that. However, it was impossible for them to cause trouble in front of Yuan Qian and the others. They could only shout and shout. Then, some people ran to the Crystal Technique family. Some people in Divine Sky City are shocked when they hear the news. They remember what the Crystal Master said. They can't help smiling bitterly. Unsurprisingly, there is something else going on. Some people who bet heavily on Xiaoning also go to the Crystal family with resentment. They think that the Crystal family went easy on her and want to ask for an explanation. However, the Crystal family is angry because they have to pay over 20 billion yuan for their defeat. Now, someone comes to them. They happen to be in trouble. They don't say anything. They swear at each other and almost fight with each other in the end. This was a bejeweled jade palace. Every inch of the palace was carved out of top-quality jade, and there were exquisite and complicated patterns carved on it. Within the palace, there were even patches of mist drifting about, causing it to appear magnificent and magnificent. It was dreamlike, like an immortal paradise. After Yuan Qian and the others take the money away, they proudly walk out of the gambling city. Naturally, they go to the Dragon Gate Hall as agreed. All of them come, including Chu Ilian and Meng Yan. The white mist is dense. The palace is located in the clouds. If one looks down from the sky, he or she can see the whole Divine Sky City clearly. The pedestrians below are as small as sesame seeds. In the air, one or two strange beasts occasionally fly by. A group of people is in the big manor outside the palace. They step on the golden stairs and look down. It seems that one person is standing above tens of thousands of people. The mist flows in the sky and under their feet. It is like a fairyland on earth. I don't know when the dragon egg will hatch. Seeing the people in the air rushing away on strange beasts, Yun Nuoxing stared blankly for a long time. He retracted his gaze with envy. He always wanted to have his own mount. To be precise, he wanted to ride a dragon and roam the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Now, this goal is not far away. Everyone is sitting in the manor, drinking and talking. Jinhing poured Yun Nuoxing a cup and said with a smile, "Little brother Nuoxing, actually, I have always been curious. You have always been betting on money. You shouldn't be a greedy person, right?" "Yes, you can know a person's face but not his heart." Yun Nuoxing nodded and smiled seriously. Everyone was stunned. He then smiled and said, "I am just making some preparations for a long-term trip in the future. I just want to earn money as travel expenses. I didn't expect something like this to happen." Long-term trip? Everyone was curious when they heard. "Yes. Although it is a little ridiculous, I am determined to travel all over the realm of the god. Along the way, there will definitely be many places where I will need money." Yun Nuoxing laughed and silently pushed the cup of wine to Xian. He didn't like the taste of wine. Hiss! Everyone gasped when they heard his great ambition. Who knew how big the realm of the gods was? Just the northern wilderness alone was enough for mortals to walk for thousands of years and still not reach the next area. How long would it take to travel all over the realm of the gods? Even for cultivators, it was an immeasurable amount of time. Little boy, why are you going so far? Yuan Qian asked curiously. The world is so big. I want to walk around. Yun Nuoxing laughed, then muttered in his heart, Do you think I want to? If it weren't for defiant ultimate God and Cord Een, who told him that he had to finish this journey and rush into the starry sky to find out about his identity, he wouldn't have bothered to walk such a long journey. Even though this was his original goal, everyone rolled their eyes. After sitting in the manor for a while, everyone walked straight into the palace. They had booked the whole place today, so they could play and eat whatever they wanted. No one would care. Usually, those who could book the whole Dragon Gate Hall were the distinguished figures of first-class forces or some god-level powerhouses who were hosting a banquet. Drizzling rain fell from the sky, dripping onto the pool and the walls of the palace. It was as if there was a clear sound of music echoing. Everyone used energy to create a barrier to keep the raindrops away, except for Yun Nuoxing. He strolled alone in the drizzle. The cool raindrops hit his face, making it itchy. He was the one who suggested the rain. There was a scene of 4 seasons in the Dragon Gate Hall, and he could switch to any season according to his mood. He chose spring. The spring rain that filled the sky fell from the sky. According to him, it was a different feeling, so why should he block it? Everyone saw him walking alone on the white jade-paved road, humming in the drizzle. His waist-long light purple hair stuck to his clothes without anything tying it up. It was like a purple waterfall, shining brightly when wet. He even spun from time to time, causing his long hair to flutter. The bright spring sunlight hit his face. It was slightly cool but also a little warm. He was carefree and satisfied. Even everyone couldn't help but hum along, almost dispersing the barrier together. Splash! Suddenly, Yun Nuoxing threw a water ball at everyone's feet when they weren't paying attention. The splashing water soaked the bottom of his trousers and long skirt, and everyone suddenly felt their ankles turn cold. What are you doing? Come quickly. They looked over in astonishment. Yun Nuoxing was still holding a water ball the size of a head in his hand. He stuck out his tongue and looked cute and a little naughty. However, everyone was speechless when they felt the coldness coming from their ankles. But looking at his smile, the anger in their hearts was suppressed. They really didn't have any temper. They smiled helplessly and quickly chased after him. A banquet had already been set up in the palace. The intoxicating aroma of wine made everyone feel relaxed and happy. They couldn't help but take 2 deep breaths. However, when the smell entered Yun Nuoxing's nose, he was speechless. But he couldn't say anything. He didn't drink wine, but others did. Moreover, the smell was uncomfortable. At least it wasn't disgusting, so he endured it. This banquet is worth at least 50 kilograms of celestial-grade glazed crystals. It's already quite extravagant. Jin Hing couldn't help but exclaim. However, compared to the legendary banquet of the gods, it's still a little lacking. The demon spirit raised a jade cup filled with fine wine, took a deep sniff, and shook his head regretfully. Sigh, those banquets of the gods can only be booked by people at the level of gods. Moreover, it costs thousands of kilograms of celestial-grade glazed crystals. They also have to be booked a month in advance. Otherwise, it's difficult to get the ingredient. Yuan Qian took a sip of wine. Her delicate body couldn't help but tremble because of the delicious taste. She even moaned. Yuan Shi and the others saw her and rolled their eyes. Yuan Qian looked at her 6th uncle, Yuan Shao. Little girl, are you trying to make your 6th uncle poor? Seeing her look over, Yuan Shao's face twitched and he laughed dryly. Anyway, I don't expect to be able to eat a meal. Yuan Qian stuck out her tongue. She knew it was impossible. Isn't it a little too exaggerated? Yun Nuoxing sniffled and asked, rolling his eyes. It's not exaggerated at all. For example, the dish Heavenly Dragon Spine is really made of dragon meat. It's the most essential part of the dragon's body. If an ordinary person eats it, his life will be prolonged. If a cultivator eats it, his strength will be enhanced to a higher level, Yuan Shi said. Dragon. Yun Nuoshing was speechless. He couldn't even ride a dragon, but a dragon was sent to the dining table. This made his heart ache. His pout and frown made people feel pity for him. In the past, there was tea made from the leaves of the heavenly spirit tree. It's said that drinking a sip can extend one's life by hundreds of years. But now, even the banquets of the gods can't afford this. Lu Yi sighed. Why? Yun Nuoshing raised his eyebrows and touched the pendant. The heavenly spirit tree was originally in the forbidden area of the ghost forest, but it has disappeared. The remaining branches and leaves of the heavenly spirit tree were, of course, put away. After all, it's only used once. No one has the courage to make tea out of the leaves of the heavenly spirit tree. Tsk, the existence of the third in the heavenly treasure list already has such a magical effect. I really don't know what magical effect the first two have. The demon shook his head. The second on the list is the heavenly phoenix blood tree. Although it's said to be second, it's neck and neck with the third heavenly spirit tree. No one has any news about its birth. It's said that this tree is watered by the blood of the phoenix. Tsk, the phoenix is a divine beast. There's only one in the world. I really don't know what a tree nourished with its blood looks like. Jin Heng was the divine son of the Golden Temple and the little leader of the Golden Jade Palace. What's the first thing? Everyone was a little curious. They already knew the third and second place. What about the first? The first. Jin Heng was stunned. He sighed and said, "The first is also a kind of tree." That's even stranger. Why are they all trees? Everyone was puzzled. Jin Heng laughed dryly and said, "The first ancient tree is called the god's spirit tree." As soon as his voice fell, Yun Nuoshing directly spat out the water. His face was full of horror. Could the god's spirit tree be that god's spirit tree? Nuoshing, what's wrong? Seeing him spit out the water, Yuanshi asked. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing waved his hand and said with a smile, "It's nothing. I just choked on water." Jin Heng, you can continue. Jin Heng nodded and slowly told them about the god's spirit tree. It was the same as what Yun Nuoshing learned from Ziyi. Only now did they know that it was the god's spirit tree that ranked first on the heavenly treasure list. After hearing this, everyone sighed. A god's spirit tree nourished by the power of the gods was hard to find. Chapter 284. I remember that old guy said that there are no more gods in this world. What's going on? Yun Nuoshing thought of the gods when she mentioned the tree of God. The gods in the legends were actually those who had reached the peak of their cultivation. Perhaps they could be called true gods. Their body structure was different from that of ordinary humans, and they were also very different from the gods. After all, the gods were still considered half a human. Of course, the gods mentioned here were not simply experts in the reincarnation realm. The definition of the gods was that they had to advance about 4 times in the reincarnation realm before they could truly transform into a god. However, people were now used to calling the experts in the reincarnation realm as gods. Although they evolved from humans, they had already shed everything of mortals and transcended to become God. They were almost another species, the most unique existence in the world. They could order everything in the world with a single thought. Even the gods could only submit to them. No one dared to disobey their orders. With a single thought, the space would collapse and everything would return to the void. They could command the world with a single thought. However, it was this kind of terrifying creature that was still everywhere in the mythological era, but all the species that could be seen on the streets had mysteriously disappeared during the mythological era. The only clue that was known was the mural that was seen in the ruins of the gods on Yunhua planet. In the mural, Twilight of the Gods had fallen, but no one knew what the so-called enemy was. Yun Nuoshing had also asked Lan Shiner, but she did not know what had happened. Naturally, she did not know about the fall of 10,000 gods. I've heard about this from the older generation. When Yun Nuoshing mentioned this matter, everyone was silent. Only Yuan Shao spoke softly. When everyone heard him mention the older generation, they could not help but twitch their eyes. You are an old monster who has lived for so long. How old must your older generation be? Ascending to the God realm is actually very simple. From the peak of the demigod realm to the primary God realm, everyone has to undergo a lightning tribulation to destroy their original body and reconstruct a new one. This is an unavoidable process. Cultivators below the God realm and God realm already have physical differences. Although we all look the same, our internal structures are slightly different. That being said, I can't find any differences. Yuan Shao couldn't help but ridicule himself. When everyone heard this, they laughed bitterly. The initial divine rank has 10 ranks: God Son, God Venerable, God King, God Emperor, God Underworld, God, Underworld King, Emperor of the Underworld, and God Emperor. Each rank is further divided into 10 ranks. These 10 ranks are collectively known as the initial divine rank, also known as the gods. After the initial divine rank, there is the post-divine rank. Although there is a difference of one word, the difference is enough to make me spit out my tongue. Just from the peak of the initial divine rank to the post-divine rank, which is the peak of the God Emperor realm, this last step will take the lives of countless people. What the peak of the God Emperor realm faces is called the Abyss of Despair. It is called the 1,000 Layers and 100 Cycles. As the name suggests, the 1,000 layers and the 100 cycles mean that the 1,000 layers of tempering will target the physical body. This is because the post-divine rank is where one can truly be called a god. Not only the cultivation, but the body structure of a god is also very different from a God-Emperor realm. This 1,000 layers of tempering will target this point. I don't know how it will change, but it will refine a body specially for the gods. As for the 100 cycles, it will condense and compress the divine power in the body and refine it 100 times. My God, how much energy does a God-Emperor realm contain? Refining it 100 times will take one's life. Towards the end, Yuan Shao was a little scared. The people present were all young elites with good temperament. Even if they heard this news, they felt that the future of cultivation was very long. Isn't it just 100 times? It's nothing. Jin Hing raised his wine cup, took a sip and smiled. Your hands are shaking. Everyone rolled their eyes at him and said helplessly. It seemed like even the god's son of the Golden Divine Palace was a little scared. You don't have to worry about anything. There is still a long time before that day comes. With your aptitude, you will be able to go very far on the path of cultivation and achieve very high achievements. The rest is just a matter of time. After all, it is the world of the young now. It is time for this old man to drink tea and grow potted plants. Yuan Shao couldn't help but sigh and ridicule himself again. Everyone rolled their eyes again. Generally speaking, they knew that it wasn't that a rebirth realm expert couldn't be born. It was just that it was very difficult to be born. In that case, it's just that it is very difficult to be born. That old man even said something about heaven and earth not being able to give birth to a rebirth realm expert. It scared me to death. Yun Nuoshing patted her chest and heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone nodded. Knowing that the end of cultivation was a dead end in advance was a very big test for their temperament. It would be fun if they couldn't take it and misunderstood. No, regarding this point, I feel that what he said isn't unreasonable. Yuan Shao shook his head and said, This world has changed since some time ago. After going through so many reincarnations, it began to be suppressed by heaven and earth. In addition to the disappearance of the first divine realm expert, there was no one to maintain the order of this world. Gradually, it became dilapidated, just like a garden that no one took care of. It became dilapidated day by day. I read this from an ancient book. We don't even know if there was a first divine realm expert. Could it be that there is a succession of divine realm experts? It is just like the mythological era. We don't even know if there was a divine realm expert. Yuan Shao sighed and said faintly, Suppression of heaven and earth? Everyone was a little puzzled. Yes, this world is full of energy suppression. This world is resisting the appearance of super-strong expert. After reaching a certain level, it is difficult to make any progress. In fact, other than those who are standing at the peak of the divine realm, even we can faintly feel the suppression of heaven and earth. In fact, my strength hasn't made any progress for many years. I don't know when I will be able to make any progress. Many years ago, Big Brother just advanced to the divine realm, and now, he is also being suppressed. Has this energy suppression existed since ancient times? Everyone asked. I don't know, but according to the ancient book, it has been suppressed a long time ago. Yuan Shao shook his head and said, What exactly is the great reincarnation? Yun Nuoshing hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but ask. This I don't know. Just like what you all know, it is something that happens once every 20 years. It has almost become a symbol of the replacement of every era. However, 20 eras, that period of time is not for us to pass through. It is for some higher-level gods or even divine spirits to pass through. People like us, when the great reincarnation arrives, we will probably be ashes to ashes and dust to dust, right? I remember that the reincarnation realm wasn't originally called the reincarnation realm. It was called the Great Heavenly Reincarnation. Is this name hinting that the reincarnation realm expert has something to do with the Great Reincarnation? Yuan Shao knocked on his head. He wanted to recall more things, but he couldn't remember anything else. Sigh, I'm old now. I can't remember things anymore. What I said was what I read in an ancient book many years ago. The things written in it are already very vague. I barely understood these things through the vague imprints left behind. You all will have to ask Big Brother for more. If we go back, Father will slap me to death. Yuan Qian stuck out her tongue and grabbed Yun Nuoshing with lingering fear. She seemed to be imagining her father's ferocious look. After all, she was the oldest of the 10 children. She actually took the lead to bring people out of the Yuan residence without notifying them, causing the whole family to think that they had gone missing. Haha, Big Brother always talks about you all. He always wants to find you all. Now that this matter is over, you should go back and take a look. Don't make him anxious. Big Brother won't do anything to you. You're already so old, do you still want to slap him? Yuan Shao chuckled and said, Perhaps Father won't do anything, but Mother's side will be troublesome. I can't avoid being nagged. Yuan Qian buried her head in Yun Nuoshing's embrace and mumbled softly. Everyone who saw this didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They didn't know what to say. Ding-ling. Suddenly, a crisp sound floated. The beautiful sound of a zither slowly rang out. It gradually overflowed like a tide, filling every inch of space in the palace. It was as if there were fairies dancing in the wind, accompanied by the sound of rain outside the palace. The soft sound of the spring breeze filled everyone's heart, causing them to yearn for it. Everyone took the time to look over, only to see Chu Yilian hugging a zither and sitting on the balcony. Her jade-like hands lightly danced on the zither strings. The sound of the zither caused people to be unable to help but indulge in it. For a moment, they threw the matter that they were discussing out of the window. Only Yun Nuoshing knew that this zither sound contained a special rhythm. It seemed that he was the only one who wasn't affected. Even Yuan Shui, because her cultivation wasn't deep enough for Chu Yilian, slowly fell into it. Even Yuan Shao couldn't avoid it. The gentle music was like flowing water flowing through the valley, giving off the wonderful sound of spring water. The entire palace was immersed in it. The flawless music gently streaked across the space, bringing about waves that were hard to be seen by ordinary people, melodiously drifting into the distance. After a long time, Chu Yilian slowly stopped playing. Everyone who was still immersed in it only regained their senses after a long time. They couldn't help but shake their heads. Rhythm, no wonder it's one of the top bewitching techniques in the world. Even I couldn't help but be mesmerized by it. Yuan Shao could not help but sigh. Although he could sense the killing intent in the melody, it would still take some effort to break free from the intoxicating melody. At the very least, it could distract him. And Chu Ilian's cultivation was only at the immortal level. Could it affect the gods a little? Fairy Chu's zither music is really wonderful. It's almost at the realm of resonance of 10,000 daos. Jin Heng and the others also praised. Hearing this, Chu Ilian smiled noncommittally and said softly, "In the end, I can't reach that realm. A month ago, the rhythm that floated in the divine sky city was the real roar of 10,000 daos, accompanied by the performance of heaven and earth. This realm has nothing to do with one's strength or inheritance. It's very difficult to reach it with one's own effort. Speaking of which, I'm a little unconvinced. Little brother Nuoshing, you're the first person who didn't indulge in Ilian's music." Chu Ilian looked at Yun Nuoshing and smiled sweetly. In an instant, her elegance was like 100 flowers blooming, bright, and moving. Hearing these words that were exactly the same as Xian Yin's, Yun Nuoshing was slightly stunned and a little absent-minded. He felt that the beautiful girl sitting in front of him wasn't Chu Ilian, but Xian Yin. After a long time, he regained his senses and laughed dryly. Only then did he realize that there seemed to be a little similar charm between the two girls. He didn't know if it was because they both cultivated music. "I have a natural resistance to some bewitching things, so it didn't have any effect, right? Fairy, don't take it to heart." Yun Nuoshing smiled and didn't say much. Chapter 285. Chu Ilian sat down gracefully. As she had just sat on the balcony, her body was inevitably stained with water droplets. Her hair was also a little wet, like a beauty who had just come out of a bath. The ethereal Mei Mao blinked slightly, and a faint fragrance wafted from her body. It was like an orchid and musk, and it made a certain person inadvertently sniffle. "Little brother Nuoshing, Ilian toasts you with a glass of wine." She smiled sweetly, and her jade-like hand gently raised the small wine glass, reaching out to Yun Nuoshing. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing suddenly felt a little ashamed. She was a girl, and yet she could drink. No, to be precise, everyone present could drink, and they could drink very well, very well. He didn't know how many bottles they had drunk, but he was the only one who hadn't touched a single drop. Fortunately, no one found out, or else he didn't know if they would think that he was a wet blanket. But now, it seemed that he couldn't refuse any more. Touching his forehead, Yun Nuoshing looked at her and smiled very lightly. Although she was the successor of the drunken immortal house, she had a kind of otherworldly feeling that was untainted by the mud. She had a strange charm that made people involuntarily have a good impression of her. Yun Nuoshing really couldn't find a way out now. Chu Ilian's words made everyone look at him, and when they realized that he didn't move, they looked at him curiously. Seeing this, Yuan Shi laughed loudly. "Nuoshing, what are you doing? You're actually unmoved by a beauty's invitation." Yun Nuoshing wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. "Little brother Nuoshing, since you're not accepting, I'll accept this cup for you." Although Jin Heng didn't know what was going on with him, he could see that he was a little embarrassed. He immediately laughed, picked up the cup of wine in front of Yun Nuoshing, and drank it in one gulp. Yun Nuoshing's face trembled. Seeing this, Chu Ilian could only take back the wine glass, took a sip, and smiled. "Little brother Nuoshing, you're the first person to reject Ilian. I'm a very vengeful person. But..." Yun Nuoshing wiped the sweat off his face. His expression was very strange. Anyone could tell that something was wrong with him. "It's over. Brother is going to be tortured," Ming muttered softly when he saw this. Ziyan tugged at his sleeve and looked at him worriedly. She transmitted her voice, "Xingxing, are you all right? Little boy, you're sweating a lot. Are you sick?" Yuan Qian walked over and placed her hand on his forehead as she asked with concern. "No." Yun Nuoshing shook her head stiffly and laughed dryly. "Little brother, what's going on? From the beginning, you didn't drink or talk much. Are you feeling uncomfortable? Lu Yi also asked. No. Yun Nuoxing was so anxious that her lips trembled. Little brother Nuoxing, drink a glass of wine to calm your nerve. The wine here is also good for treating illnesses. Yuan Qi also raised a glass of wine and placed it in front of Yun Nuoxing as she smiled. I. Yun Nuoxing's face suddenly turned red. He gritted his teeth and his handsome face was ferocious. It was as if he had suffered a great pain. Everyone was shocked. Before they could say anything, he shouted. I don't know how to drink. His embarrassed and angry voice sounded like an ultrasonic wave. Even the sound of the wind quieted down. The atmosphere in the palace seemed to have frozen. Only Yun Nuoxing's handsome face was flushed red, and he was panting heavily as he stared at the crowd. Yuan Qian was the first to lose it. Her slender eyelashes trembled violently as she covered her cherry mouth with her hand. However, she was laughing so hard that her entire body was shaking. About that, drinking wine, that's When the demon heard this, he calmly wanted to say something. However, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He bit his lips hard and his handsome face was a little red from holding his breath. Nuoxing, you actually, it's nothing. You don't drink wine or anything, you're not the only one in the world, right? Yuan Shi held his breath for a long time. He opened his mouth and wanted to laugh, but he choked it back. His face was very funny and his laughter came out from between his fingers. Brother Yuan, your laughter is like farting, Ha 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 ha. Finally, Jin Hung couldn't hold it in anymore and was the first to laugh out loud. It was as if a barrel of explosives had been detonated. The people who were holding it in earlier couldn't help but laugh until the sky turned upside down. Each and every one of them was lying on the ground, hitting the floor and the table. Even Meng Yan and Xian, who were naturally quiet, were laughing like flowers. They were like two beautiful scenery that had a different flavor. Seeing everyone laughing so happily, Yun Nuoxing's face was so hot that he wanted to die. He was probably the only one who couldn't laugh. Chu Ilian was embarrassed for a while and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Well, young people, not drinking is also a habit to cultivate one's character. Hee. Yuan Shao patted his shoulder and wanted to comfort him. However, he still laughed out loud in the end. You guys. Yun Nuoxing felt so ashamed that he couldn't show his face. It was the first time in his life that he was treated as a laughing stock. Now, his whole body was burning. Even Ming couldn't help but laugh. The loud laughter echoed in the palace and lasted for a full 10 minutes before it gradually subsided. Everyone straightened their faces and smiled faintly. They looked at the blushing Yun Nuoxing and couldn't help but shake their heads. What's so funny? The taste of this wine is so bad. It tastes bitter and astringent. How is it good? I really don't know who invented it, Yun Nuoxing said discontentedly. His face was red and he simply smashed the pot. Nuoxing, your words have offended all the drinking friends in the world. Yuan Shi couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. Little boy, you're really. Yuan Qian laughed weakly. At this time, she was hanging on Yun Nuoxing's body. Her face was flushed and her hair was messy, as if she had just woken up. Humph! Yun Nuoxing snorted softly and turned his head away in a fit of pique. He ignored everyone and his arrogant look almost made everyone laugh out loud again. Hee, little boys are quite cute when they're angry. Leaning on Yun Nuoxing, Yuan Qian pinched his face and smiled sweetly. Yun Nuoxing rolled his eyes and ignored her. Speaking of which, little brother Nuoxing, what do you plan to do with the Scarlet Cross? Everyone tidied up their clothes and took a long time to slowly calm down. Then, they talked about the Scarlet Cross. That. I'm going to use it as a weapon. Yun Nuoxing shrugged and said directly. You already have so many weapons and you still want to use them. Everyone looked at him bitterly. Just now, they saw with their own eyes that he took out a lot of weapons as if they were free. How could he use them as weapons now? I can't help it. The Scarlet Cross is a 12th level material. Only the gods can use it. I'm not a god, so I definitely can't change its appearance or anything. I can only use it as a whole. Moreover, the Scarlet Cross was originally forged into a weapon, but it seemed to be only a semi-finished product. It was discarded before it was completely forged. Yun Nuoshing stuck out his tongue. Moreover, although I have many weapons, none of them are comparable to the Scarlet Cross. After listening, everyone suddenly understood. No matter what kind of weapon, the best quality was only 12th level. Now that he had a top-level weapon, he might not use the rest. Jin Heng, how's the 0-degree ice stone? Speaking of this, Yun Nuoshing remembered the stone he threw in the Golden Palace. About that, there's no problem. If nothing unexpected happens, the auction will be finished today. Because it's not a grand auction, there probably won't be an unprecedented scene. However, the advertisement is enough. I think there should be a lot of people coming. Jin Heng nodded. Yuan Qian twirled Mei Mao with a mischievous look. She poked Yun Nuoshing's face with her lily-white hand and said with a smile, "Little boy, do you really want to go to the end of the Pantheon world?" Hearing this grand ambition, everyone looked over at him together. They were a little curious. Going to the end of the Pantheon world was not just for show. That distance, that long journey, could scare a god to death. I came from the Taiyuan territory. What do you think? Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing agreed very straightforwardly. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Then, they smiled bitterly. This was really an incredible journey. Hee, I came from the Taiyuan territory with my brother. At this time, Ming stood on a stool with his hands on his waist and said proudly. Then, he burrowed into Yun Nuoshing's arms and refused to come down. Yun Nuoshing shook his head and said, "Well, that's about it. When we're done here, we should be on our way." "Little boy, you're leaving?" Hearing this, Yuan Qian was a little anxious. Her lily-white hand held Yun Nuoshing tightly, as if she was afraid he would suddenly disappear. "I have no choice. The road is under my feet. I have to walk it." Sighing, Yun Nuoshing patted her head and said, "To be honest, I like a quiet life. However, there's a reason for going to the end of the Pantheon world. As for why, I can't say, because every family has its own difficulties. Nuoshing, if you can't say it, don't say it," Yuan Shi said very understandingly. "Okay, little brother Nuoshing, when you're leaving, let us know. We'll send you off." Jin Heng stood up and patted him on the shoulder with a smile. "Of course." Yun Nuoshing nodded. The people he knew here were all nice and made him feel a little warm. Although he hid a lot of things during this period of time, although it was rushed, it was also a period of time that was worth treasuring. "Little boy." Seeing this, Yuan Qian's expression was a little gloomy. She wanted to say something but couldn't open her mouth. She bit her red lips with her pearly white teeth, and the mischievous look on her face faded away. What was left was a slightly sad expression. "Little brother, you're going on your way? Bring me along. I'll go too." Lu Yi heard and smiled. "Huh!" Yun Nuoshing was startled. He looked at him in a daze for a while and said, "You're going out with me to gain experience?" "Yes, there's nothing important to do in Liaotianga. I've wanted to go out for a walk for a long time, but I haven't found a good opportunity. Now that you're going out, I'll go with you. With a companion on the road, I won't be lonely." Lu Yi laughed foolishly. Everyone was stunned and couldn't help but smile bitterly. How bold. The moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to go with him to gain experience in the entire realm of the gods. "Little boy, sister, just let him be. A man's mind is in the world. If you bind him, it will only be a kind of torture for him. What's more, little brother Nuoshing also has his own things to do. Do you want him to leave regrets in his life?" Seeing that Yuan Qian wanted to say something, Yuan Qi couldn't help but sigh. He thought that she wanted to keep Yun Nuoxing, so he could only persuade her. That's right, sister. Mr. Yun also has his own things to deal with. If you like him, you should like to see him laughing in the outside world instead of imprisoning him by your side. Yuan Shui also tried to persuade her. Hearing that, Yuan Qian smiled sweetly and shook her head. They were a little stunned. However, her next sentence made everyone feel like they were struck by lightning. I want to go with little boy. When Yuan Qian said this, her face didn't turn red and her heart didn't race. It didn't seem like an impulsive decision. Her bright Mei Mao stared at Yun Nuoxing with incomparable seriousness. Cough. Yuan Shao coughed heavily and shook his head with a bitter smile. Although he knew that this little girl had made up her mind and no one could change her mind, he still wanted to say something to calm her down. Everyone, there's no need to say anything. I'm very calm, I'm very serious. I want to go with little boy and the others. Yuan Qian smiled knowingly. Then, she held Yun Nuoxing's hand and said with a smile, Little boy, I'm very serious about this matter. Do you agree? Yun Nuoxing's heart skipped a beat. Everyone looked at this scene in astonishment. If they didn't hear what she said, they would probably think that this was a marriage proposal. The place I want to go is a forbidden area. Chapter 286. Our destination is a forbidden zone. It's a forbidden zone with a single element theme. It's extremely dangerous. We passed by Divine Sky City on our way to Tana's Water God Temple. We're just here to rest. We've already come out of a forbidden zone. We almost died. We almost didn't see you again. The reason why we're going to the entire realm of the gods is also because of the forbidden zone. After hearing this, everyone was shocked beyond words. They all looked at Yun Nuoxing as if he was crazy. Damn it, how could you just walk into a forbidden zone like that? That kind of place of death, that kind of place of no return, the majority of people are afraid of it like a tiger. Why are you in such a hurry to jump there? Even so, do you still want to follow us? Yun Nuoxing sighed. To be honest, he was a little worried that someone would travel with him. After all, the places he and Ziyan were going to were all extremely vicious and barren places where even birds did not lay eggs. If they brought one more person, it would be more dangerous. Everyone was silent. They couldn't answer. The Forbidden Zone with a single element theme was widely known. Its deterrence was even greater than that of a god. It hadn't been destroyed for so many years. Who knew how many generations of lives had been taken? Many geniuses had died in order to explore the Forbidden Zone. They never came out again after entering. Now, nodding wasn't a matter of courage anymore. It was a choice to risk everything. It wasn't wise or desirable. Everyone looked at each other. Looking at Yun Nuoxing's helpless smile, they suddenly felt that this handsome young man was very mysterious. Yes, that's it. Seeing that Yuan Qian and Lu Yi were silent, Yun Nuoxing smiled and nodded. You two can stay in Divine Sky City and be a beautiful girl and a handsome man. If we come back alive one day, we'll come back to Divine Sky City to see you. Of course, that's only if we're still alive. Hearing this, Ziyan patted him and said, Don't say such ominous things. We'll be fine. Yuan Qian bit her red lips. Her eyes revealed a hint of decisiveness. Seeing her like this, everyone knew that they were in trouble. Little girl, you have to think carefully. Even we don't dare to make a trip to that place. Yuan Shao hurriedly advised. Qian, don't be rash. Those places are very dangerous. It won't be a problem for us to go there with some special means. However, I'm afraid that I won't be able to protect you if I bring you along. How can I be at ease if something happens to you? Yun Nuoxing sighed as she patted her head. Little boy. Yuan Qian still wanted to follow him, but she was stunned by his sad eyes. She forgot to speak and let him pat her head without saying anything. You have your own great world, and we have our own world that we have to explore. Even if the road ahead is long and dangerous, and we have a slim chance of survival, we still have to go because this is our different mission. Yun Nuashing patted her head and suddenly laughed heroically. Even if the road ahead is full of thorns, I will use my hands to cut a path out. At this moment, everyone looked at Yun Nuashing with a strange gaze. The person standing there didn't seem to be a mischievous young man, but an indomitable giant who was filled with an indelible heroic spirit. Well, it won't be like facing a cliff anyway. Before everyone could sigh with emotion, Yun Nuashing laughed again. Damn. His style has changed. Everyone was speechless. What's wrong with me now? Yun Nuashing felt wronged after being scolded for no reason. The next day, Jin Hing sent over a bright golden card. He patted Yun Nuashing's shoulder and said with a smile, "Little brother Nuashing, there's 26 billion in this card." The auction was very successful. 5% of the tax was deducted, and the rest is in here. Where's the 24 billion that we agreed on? Why is there so much more? Yun Nuashing received the card and felt a little surprised. A big shot came. He surprised everyone with the offer. That's why he bid at such a high price. Jin Heng patted on his shoulder and smiled. Yun Nuashing watches Jin Heng leave. He takes out a purple golden card and an emerald green card. The former was given to him by Yuan Qian. There are as much as 400 billion in it. Yuan Qian only took less than 100 billion and gave the rest to him. The latter card is surely the part that Xia Ning lost. When he received such a huge amount of money all of a sudden, he felt that it was too unreal that it can be said that he got rich overnight. In an instant, he became tall, rich and handsome. No, tall, rich and beautiful in the palace where the Yuan family used to live. Yun Nuashing turned to glance at the room. He and Xian look at each other and smile. Then, they gently closed the door. They tiptoed to the main hall. As usual, they wanted to sneak out of the house while it was still early, before the first rays of the morning sun faded and no one woke up. The sky was still a little dark, so they didn't want to make anyone sad, especially Yuan Qian. They walked to the door. There was still some distance before the stairs. Yun Nuashing turned to look at the empty sofa and smiled. "Little boy, where are you going?" However, just when he thought that his plan was flawless and he could leave quietly, a light laugh came from the entrance of the palace. Under the light of the morning sun, a beautiful white figure stood gracefully by the entrance of the palace. It seemed that she had been waiting here for a long time. Oh! Yun Nuashing was shocked. The dark palace suddenly becomes bright. Suddenly, there are over 10 people sitting on the sofa behind him. Hee. Everyone gets up so early. Yun Nuashing finds that almost everyone is here. He gives a hollow laugh and sticks out his tongue. Looks like Ming was right. Little boys like to run away early. Hearing this, Yuan Qian walked over with a faint smile, bringing with her a fragrant wind. She was only a few inches away from him, and reached out to flick his forehead. Yun Nuashing glared fiercely at Ming Ming in his arms, but the latter stuck out her tongue coquettishly and innocently, looking as if it had nothing to do with her. He could not help but pinch her face. Not at all. Parting is so sad. The wind is blowing and the water is cold. A warrior will never return. Benefactor, even if you accompany him for 1,000 miles, you still have to part. Why don't you go back and sleep? Patting Yuan Qian's shoulder, Yun Nuashing grinned. 1,000 miles your head. Yuan Qian rolled her eyes at him flirtatiously. Nuashing, you're treating us too much like outsiders. You're leaving and you're not even letting us send you off properly. Didn't we agree to it back then? You're going back on your word now. Yuan Shi helplessly walked up from the side and sighed. Little brother Nuashing, you are too polite. Jin Heng and Chu Ilian also walked over and said, there are so many stars in the sky and so many white clouds on the ground. Yun Nuashing looks up at the sky and plays dumb. Everyone rolled their eyes when they saw this. I really feel that parting is very sad. Otherwise, I wouldn't run away in the middle of the night. Walking on the road outside the palace, Yun Nuoshing looks at the two rising stars. The morning light has not faded and he still looks lazy. He sighs and says helplessly, "But, if we don't say goodbye properly, we will regret it." Yuan Qian shook her head and walks side by side with him. The group of people follows behind them in the name of letting the two of them spend some time alone. The morning light shines in this world. The air is still a little moist and the grass on the side of the road is still stained with rain and dew, reflecting a little bit of light. Hearing this sentence he once said, Yun Nuoshing is a little speechless. Yuan Qian suggested that she still wanted to tag along, but he rejected her suggestion. When it came to exploring the Forbidden Zone, the more people there were, the better. He had already reached his limit by bringing 2 people with him. If he brought 2 more people with him, there might be unexpected accidents. Little boy. Yuan Qian suddenly opens her arms and hugs Yun Nuoshing into her embrace. Her jade-like hands are tightly wrapped around his waist. Yun Nuoshing is startled. He turns around and finds that the group is no longer behind him. They went to another road and left the 2 of them here. If only I didn't meet you, Yuan Qian suddenly says faintly with her head buried in his chest. He doesn't know what to do. His first reaction is that he did something wrong. Yuan Qian. Yun Nuoshing is a little flustered. After a long time he says, "You didn't really do that, did you?" He didn't think that he will be liked by anyone. However, after spending more than a month together and hearing what Yuan Qian said today, his worldview seems to have been turned upside down. Yuan Qian doesn't say anything. She just nods and hugs him like that. After a long time, she let go of him. She touches his face with her jade-like hands and says with a smile, "Forget it. What happened has happened. Yun Nuoshing, listen to me." She suddenly stretches out her jade-like fingers to touch his lips. The soft touch makes his heart flutter. The change in her tone makes him straighten his back. He says in a serious voice, "Go ahead." Yuan Qian smiles sweetly and says, "I will pursue you. So, before you find someone you like, leave a place for me." Yun Nuoshing is silent. He stares into her clear eyes. After a long time, he sighs and nods seriously and says, "Okay." Seeing that he agrees, Yuan Qian smiles even more happily. She is so bright and beautiful that the sun in the sky suddenly pales in comparison. She jumps into Yun Nuoshing's arms and kisses him lightly on the cheek. Yun Nuoshing blushes a little after being sneak attacked at lightning speed. However, when he sees that Yuan Qian's face is also covered in crimson red, he is stunned for a moment. "Let's go." Yuan Qian smiles sweetly. She holds Yun Nuoshing's hand and flies towards the entrance of the self-created world. The Yuan family's original address is still some distance away from the northern city gate. Even with the group's speed, it takes them 1 or 2 hours to get there. Everyone has a tacit understanding not to ask what the 2 of them talked about or what happened. They just buried their heads in their journey. Even the curious Ming has his mouth covered by Xian's hand. When they reach the northern city gate, Yun Nuoshing and the rest see a group of people gathered at the city gate. The black mass of people's heads is shaking, and the noise is so loud that it seems like it will overturn the city. Moreover, there are many cultivators floating in the sky. They are also shouting something loudly. Their voices are intertwined, causing everyone to frown. They don't know what is going on, so they quickly move closer. "Why did you seal the city gate today? My caravan is still waiting outside. You can't do this. If this deal doesn't go through, I will suffer a huge loss. Why did you close the transportation portal and city gate? At least leave a path for us to get out. If you don't open the gate, do you believe that I will break into the city and leave?" Amidst the clamor, Yun Nuoshing caught something. It seems like the city gate was suddenly closed. In other words, no one can enter or leave the city now. What's going on? Yun Nuoshing frowns, turned around and asked. Everyone shook their heads. They didn't receive any news of the city being sealed. Why was the Divine Sky City suddenly sealed? Even the city protection barrier has been activated. Could it be that a great enemy has invaded? Everyone, calm down. There is indeed a special situation today. It is hard to explain in a short time. If you want to know more, why don't you go to the square in the city center to take a look? A guard at the gate shouted loudly. Do you think the Divine Sky City is small? How long will it take to get to the city center? No way. You have to explain it to me now. Why should the city be sealed just because you say so? The crowd was unhappy and started to clamor again. This made the guard feel very troubled. He quickly turned around and shouted something. Humph! Suddenly, a cold snort rang out beside everyone's ears, causing everyone to feel dizzy. The noise instantly disappeared, and they all looked at the city gate in bewilderment. Behind the guard, a young man in a gray robe walked out. His thick eyebrows were furrowed, and he had an imposing aura. He looked very imposing without being angry. He walked to the front of the crowd, cupped his hands, and said in a low voice, I apologize for the inconvenience caused by the sudden sealing of the city. The Chi family will give an explanation later. But now, please wait for a few days. We will catch someone in the city. If you are interested, you can go to the city center to take a look. If you can provide any clues, you will be rewarded handsomely. Although this young man said this, he sounded very arrogant. No matter how people heard it, they didn't like it. Many people frowned immediately, but because of the Chi family's power, they couldn't say much. Although the young man's voice wasn't loud, it echoed clearly in everyone's ears. Some people directly flung their sleeves and left angrily. They flew towards the city center, as if they wanted to find out what had happened that made the Chi family make such a big fuss. The Chi family? Sealing the city. At this moment, Yun Nuoxing had a bad premonition. Chapter 287. The Chi clan, one of the 8 ancient great clans, has given the order to seal the city. How impressive! Yuan Shi sneered. The Yuan clan's status was on par with the 8 ancient great clans. Now that they had sealed the city with such fanfare, they were naturally displeased. The barrier of the Divine Sky City is very hard and contains a trace of divine might. Even an Emperor God expert might not be able to break it. Furthermore, the sealing of the city should have been approved by a few major forces in the city. Otherwise, the barrier wouldn't have been opened. I wonder what the Chi clan is up to. Jin Hing frowned as he couldn't figure it out. Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing's heart pounded. Others didn't know why, but he could guess a little. Back in the Divine Weapon City, he had killed the 2 people from the Chi clan. Later on, the Chi clan announced that they wanted to kill Yun Nuoxing. Although their target was his Ling Hong sword, the order to kill was just to give themselves a legitimate reason. Let's go to the center of the city to take a look. Yun Nuoxing pursed his lips as if he didn't know anything. That's true. Everyone nodded and flew towards the center of the city. The Divine Sky City occupied a huge area. Even if they wanted to reach the center of the city, it would take some effort. On the way, Yun Nuoxing and the others saw many people flying towards the center of the city. Not only in the north, but in the other 3 directions as well. It seemed like the entire city was sealed. Everyone wanted to know why. In the square in the center of the city there was a huge bounty board. On it was a piece of paper with the Chi clan's unique symbol and a portrait. It seemed like the person the Chi clan wanted to capture was this person. The Celestial Master has deduced that this person is in the Divine Sky City. The Chi clan has taken the liberty to seal the city and caused a lot of inconvenience. I apologize to everyone here. Also, if anyone knows anything about this person, you can tell us. The Chi clan will compensate you after this matter is settled. Below the bounty board, a group of people wearing the Chi clan's robes stood. The leader of the group was an old man with white hair and a youthful face. He didn't bully others at all. The Celestial Master has deduced it? Impossible. With Ling Hongjian on me, how could anyone possibly deduce my position? Upon hearing this, Yun Nuoxing felt that it was ridiculous. Ling Hongjian could conceal his aura, so how could anyone deduce his location? No, wait a minute. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something. His face froze, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. He remembered the day when Ling Hongjian had broken through. His energy was turbulent, and he had been away for a long time. That was the only chance the Qi family had to find him. That's enough. Don't tell me that you're constantly trying to deduce my position? Yun Nuoxing frowned and sighed. That was indeed the case for the Qi clan. Ever since Ling Hongjian was born and taken away by Yun Nuoxing, they had been looking for people to deduce Yun Nuoxing's position without stopping. That time when Ling Hongjian left, they had indeed managed to locate him. However, the journey was long, and the Qi clan's headquarters was in the southern plains of the Divine Lands. Even if they used the teleportation gate, it still took them a long time to reach the Divine Sky City. Looking at the largest portrait that occupied the headlines, Yun Nuoxing could only be thankful that the portrait wasn't drawn clearly. However, he had drawn the 6 black wings. Luckily, he hadn't spread his wings during this period of time. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. Looking at the groups of people below, he shuddered. If so many people surrounded him, he wouldn't be able to keep his life. Who is this person? Why is the Qi clan spending so much effort to catch him? Yuan Shi couldn't help but ask as he looked at the portrait. Jin Hing frowned and thought for a while before saying, "Do you remember the incident at the Divine Weapon City that caused an uproar a few years ago? It was said that 2 people from the Qi clan died in the Divine Weapon City. After that, the news of Ling Hongjian's birth spread. The entire divine world probably knew about this. That person took Ling Hongjian away, and the Qi clan issued a kill order in the name of righteousness. On the surface, they said that they wanted to kill him, but in reality, they wanted to snatch Ling Hongjian away." Yuan Shao nodded and said, "The birth of a divine weapon is unavoidable. Especially the 12 divine swords in the divine weapon ranking, divine sword record. There hasn't been news of their birth for a long time. This time, Ling Hongjian's birth will make many ancient forces active. Ling Hongjian is known as the Sword of Time and Space. The first news of its birth was in the ancient times. Originally, it was forged by a certain divine spirit using all his means to condense the power of time and space. After this sword was born, everyone's power of time and space was useless. The time and space within millions of miles were shattered. It can easily tear the void apart. It is also known as the Sword of Time and Space. Ling Hongjian has been born a few times. Every time, it attracted countless forces and countless experts to fight for it. Every time, blood flowed like a river. However, there was no news of it being subdued. After so many years, I heard that Ling Hongjian was weakened by someone," Yuan Shao said slowly. "This was all recorded in the ancient books. It's not just weakened. Its spiritual root is broken and half of its spirituality has dissipated. It's almost crippled." Yun Nuoxing couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Now, he still had to repair Ling Hongjian. Just thinking about it made his heart ache. A divine weapon was forced to such a state. Does the Yuan clan also want to obtain Ling Hongjian? Yun Nuoxing thought for a while and asked. Of course, everyone has their own thoughts. Of course, everyone has the same idea. Obtaining the Ling Hongjian is equivalent to obtaining a very solid backing. In the future, when the enemy invades, they will have one more way to deal with it. Moreover, a divine weapon can create an immortal inheritance force. Of course, this is just a thought. The Ling Hongjian has appeared so many times. Other than fighting for it once, the Yuan clan has never joined in the fun again. That time, the gains did not make up for the losses. So many people in the clan gave up. Yuan Shao nodded. After thinking for a while, he said, "Moreover, Ling Hongjian should not be subdued now." "Why?" Everyone was stunned. They didn't understand. Ling Hongjian left with that person. It might have already recognized its master. Moreover, think about it. Why would Ling Hongjian leave with that person? In the past, no one dared to make a move against it. In the end, it left by itself. Yuan Shao smiled faintly and said mysteriously. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then, they frowned and thought hard. Did they meet each other's eyes? Because it has no strength to resist. It has already been subdued? Everyone thought for a long time and could only think of these few possibilities. They all said it one after another, but Yuan Shao shook his head. Why is that? Sixth uncle, don't keep us in suspense. Seeing him acting mysterious, Yuan Qian couldn't help but pat him. Yuan Shao smiled and said, actually, this is also my guess. Or perhaps it's the guess of most people. It's not impossible for Ling Hongjian to be subdued. However, there's only hope if those gods make a move. Therefore, I think that person should be the forger of Ling Hongjian. Or rather, he has some relationship with the forger. The forger of Ling Hongjian. Everyone was stunned. Then, they all shook their heads at the same time. Sixth uncle, how is that possible? It's said that Ling Hongjian was forged in an era even older than the Archean era. It's been 2 eras. The third. This era is about to end in half an era. How can it be the forger? Is that person still alive? Yuan Shi shook his head. Oh, this is only one of the possibilities. Rather, it's very likely. Other than that, perhaps the only explanation is that Ling Hongjian and that person met each other's eyes. Yuan Shao nodded and said. Hearing this, everyone was in disbelief. They didn't think that anyone could live for so long. 60 or 70 years. Even the gods had been dead for so long. Could there really be someone in this world who could live for so long? Knowing that they couldn't leave the city for a while, everyone could only return to the palace and wait for the Qi family to open the door. Yun Nuoxing was quite happy. The Qi family couldn't possibly seal the divine sky city forever. If she didn't appear for a long time, they would open the door sooner or later. Then, they could leave. Of course, everyone knew this idea. Yuan Qian was very happy because Yun Nuoxing couldn't leave for the time being. She could spend more time with him. He dragged a group of people out every day to eat, drink, and have fun on the street. This made everyone helpless and scared him so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. He was now a serious criminal. It was very scary for him to walk out so casually. Although he had Shui Yan's skin and could change his appearance, and the blurry image made it even harder for people to recognize him, he couldn't be sure that he wouldn't be seen through if he kept walking outside. Under the influence of psychological effects, he changed his clothes. He changed out of the black windbreaker that he always wore and changed into a white shirt and a cape. Qian, why don't we not go out? After half a month, the city gate still didn't show any signs of opening. Although some people complained, they didn't say much because of the Qi family's power. Those who had nothing to do started to look for Yun Nuoxing in the Divine Sky City. The small number of search teams increased exponentially. Every day, people could see people flying around in the sky. Many of them couldn't wait to find Yun Nuoxing and ask the Qi family to open the city gate. Under such a tense atmosphere, many people couldn't take it anymore. They couldn't leave and they couldn't teleport. The angry crowd could only desperately search for people in the Divine Sky City. Of course, there were also people who went for the reward. The Qi family had been heavy-handed, and the reward made many people jealous. Today, when he saw Yuan Qian trying to pull him out again, Yun Nuoxing immediately lost his composure. They didn't know, but he knew that the person the Qi family was looking for was him. He was really like an ant on a hot pan now, very worried that he would be caught just like that. What are you afraid of? The Qi family isn't looking for you. Let's play. Yuan Qian smiled. When she said, Tianji, he was so scared that his heart almost stopped beating. Qian. Seeing this, Yun Nuoxing could not help but raise his voice a little. He grabbed the soft jade hand in his palm and pulled it back. He looked at the beautiful face in front of him that was filled with confusion and said, as if he was begging, "Let's not go out, okay? Little boy?" Seeing him like this, although Yuan Qian was confused, she knew that she shouldn't force him. She could only nod obediently. "Okay, let's not go out." Seeing this, Yun Nuoxing heaved a sigh of relief. The Yuan family and the Qi family weren't friends. Yuan Qi had tried to talk to them, but the Qi family didn't buy it at all. They said that they wouldn't give up until they caught Yun Nuoxing. This gave Yun Nuoxing a headache. If this continued, they would be caught sooner or later. Everyone was a little confused when they saw him like this. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Late at night, Yun Nuoxing looked at the scarlet crescent moon in the sky. The cool night sky was filled with tension, which made him feel a little uneasy. Even at night, he could see people flying across the night sky. With a sigh, he called Xian over. "Xing, what's wrong?" Hearing the call from the soul, Xian almost ran to the top of the palace. Her plump breasts were heaving up and down, but she still said with a smile. Yun Nuoxing was stunned and found it a little funny. He just called her over. There was no need to be like this, right? He didn't say that it was urgent. He looked around and saw that there was no one around. Ming wasn't there either. Then, he nodded. Then, he suddenly covered Xian's mouth and shushed her to quiet down. Xian was slightly shocked when her mouth was suddenly covered, but she didn't do anything. She believed that he wouldn't hurt her. When she saw his serious expression, she knew that he had something to say, so she nodded. "Listen carefully. This is just in case. I haven't told you about this yet." Yun Nuoxing's mouth was close to Xian's ear. He opened his mouth and said in an almost inaudible voice. When she heard this, Xian's Mei Mao widened her eyes. She had been looking around today and didn't hear what others were saying. Now that she heard him say this, she was so scared that she couldn't speak. When Yun Nuoxing finished speaking, she still hadn't recovered. "If something happens to me, you take Ming with you. Go, take care of her. Don't worry about me. Go there. No one can touch you." Yun Nuoxing patted her head and smiled. "No, I." Hearing this, Xian came back to her senses. She hurriedly opened her mouth, but Yun Nuoxing covered her mouth again. "Don't put on a touching scene of life and death. I might not be in trouble. I'm just arranging a backup plan in advance. Be good." Yun Nuoxing patted her head again and said seriously. Chapter 288. Ziyen returned to her room in a mess. Looking at Ming Ming, who was sleeping soundly on the bed, Ziyen could not help but sigh. Her jade-like hands were tightly clasped together, and she felt a little helpless. All along, it had been Yun Nuoxing who had brought her to explore. Whether it was the Earth Grotto or Divine Sky City, she had not helped at all. From the moment they met, she knew that Yun Nuoxing had saved her family and prevented the Xian family from being destroyed. He had also given her a new lease of life. Although Yun Nuoxing had always said that she had saved his life, and that this debt of gratitude could never be repaid, she thought that the debt of saving his life could be repaid with the two things that happened to her and her family. Moreover, she knew that Yun Nuoxing wouldn't die at that time. Although she said that she wanted to accompany him on his journey, she actually wanted to help him. Although she wasn't strong enough, she had such thoughts. When she found out that she had the legendary 5 elements body and could continue to cultivate, she was very happy because she could help him a little. She thought so from the bottom of her heart, but the result made her feel helpless. She was still too weak and couldn't help him at all. Now, he was close to a disaster, but she still couldn't help him. She could only listen to his arrangements and couldn't do anything. If only I hadn't lost my powers back then. Her delicate body curled up on the bed. Her small body stretched out her alluring curve. She looked at Ming Ming, who was sleeping soundly, and sighed. In the dark red night sky, his white robe fluttered in the wind and reflected the crimson color. Yun Nuoshing looked up at the red crescent moon and couldn't help but smile. The Qi family. The next morning, Yun Nuoshing woke everyone up and said that he wanted to go out and play. He had been cooped up in the palace for 10 days and didn't go out. Everyone felt that they were going to grow moldy. "You're disturbing our sleep." Everyone looked at him bitterly and almost threw a pillow at him. "How can you say that?" Yun Nuoshing put his hands on his hips and grinned. "Young people should go out more often. Don't stay at home all the time. Let's go to the stone workshop and play." "Damn, you said that we don't go out." Everyone was furious and threw a pillow at him. There are so many stars in the sky. There were so many white clouds on the ground. Everyone was infuriated. "Come on." Yuan Qian was also in a daze. When she heard that he wanted to go out to play, she was so excited that she jumped up. She hugged him and spun around a few times before she went to wash up in satisfaction. When Xian was woken up, he had a pair of dark circles under his eyes. His peerless face looked a little disfigured, but it was a different kind of feeling. Yun Nuoshing stared at him for a long time without holding back, as if she wanted to remember this scene, which made the girl feel embarrassed. Ma, why are you like this? Was he still asleep? Or are you worried about what I said last night?" Sitting on the edge of the bed, Yun Nuoshing patted her head without blushing and stroking her soft purple hair, and said with a smile, "It's really okay." "If it's okay, he wouldn't have arranged so many things," Xian muttered when she heard this. Shaking his head with a wry smile, Yun Nuoshing channeled his spiritual energy and soul energy into her body to eliminate her fatigue. Her beautiful face returned to its original state. She looked radiant and beautiful, and every frown and smile could soften one's heart. He stared at her for a while longer before leaving. Half an hour later, everyone gathered in the hall. They looked at the unusually excited Yun Nuoshing and thought that he had taken the wrong medicine. Why couldn't he let them sleep more? "Hee, little star asked us out to play." Only Yuan Qian was the happiest. She was so excited that her 9 sisters-in-law were speechless. Xian was also very gloomy. No one knew, but she vaguely guessed something. She looked at Yun Nuoshing, who was standing at the door with a bright face, and felt a little heartache. The group of people flew directly towards the direction of the stone square street. Because the entire city was in a state of panic from the search, there were not many people on the stone square street. It was no longer bustling with activity. Most of the people had gone to search for the missing person. There were also some elders walking around the stone square street. They did not seem to be interested in the Qi family's matter of sealing the city. Some people's faces turned green when they saw Yun Nuoshing walking over. After the previous 2 incidents, almost everyone recognized this young man who had cut out rare treasures. Now that he was here, they wondered if he was going to make a move again. "Why are all their faces so dark?" Yuan Qian asked curiously. Many people in the stone workshops saw them walking over. They were just short of writing, "You're not welcome," on their faces. "How can my face not be dark here?" Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing laughed sinisterly. Everyone couldn't wait for him to disappear here, but they were also very happy to have him as a guest. What was surprising was that Jin Heng, Yao Ling, and Chu Ilian were all here. Yun Nuoshing was a little surprised. He didn't know why so many people were here. "Yuan Shi asked us to come." Jin Heng patted his shoulder calmly. However, Yun Nuoshing didn't find anything he was satisfied with after walking around a few large manors. Other than Xian crystals, the things he could give away were some materials, herbs he didn't recognize, or things he couldn't see clearly. However, the people behind him didn't have a blacksmith, an alchemist, or of course, an alchemist. They avoided the 3 elements of metal, fire, and gold very well during this period. He also went to the Yu family's stone workshop because he was still thinking about the black stone. However, the result was a little disappointing. The goddess of the Yu family hadn't returned yet. He didn't know where she went with the stone, which made him feel very regretful. Little boy, you didn't buy anything after shopping for the whole morning. Walking on the street, Yuan Qian couldn't help but complain. Don't you girls go shopping just to look around? Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing raised his eyebrows and smiled. Moreover, there are no blacksmiths or alchemists among us. I saw something good, but it's useless to buy it. Even if I give it to you, you won't be able to use it. After saying this, he spread out his hands innocently. Hearing this, everyone rolled their eyes. However, they also felt that it made sense. Since they couldn't use it, it was useless to buy it. I can't help it. In the Yuan family, our bloodline is basically made up of wood and earth element. Only Shui, and Shir have water and wind elements. Yuan Qian muttered. Then let's just look around. Yun Nuoshing spread out his hands helplessly and continued walking. He entered the Qi family's stone workshop again. When the people of the Qi family's stone workshop saw him, it was as if they had seen the plague. They couldn't just close the door and not let him in. The stones were clearly priced and could be bought as long as one paid the price. However, when they saw him, they could only pinch their ears and let him in. The old man and the crystallizer master had already left. Many of the Qi family's upper echelons had also arrived. They had also been urgently called over. The divine manor was empty and there wasn't anyone there. Yun Nuoshing casually bought a dozen stones. He didn't even cut them open. Through the evil spirit eye, he could see that there were good things inside. He directly distributed them to everyone. Then, he swaggered out of the stone workshop, causing the people of the Qi family's stone workshop to gnash their teeth in anger. However, they didn't know what was inside those stones. Just as they walked out of the Qi family's stone workshop, a group of people walked towards them. There were two people behind them. Yun Nuoshing was no stranger to them. Naturally, they were the old man and the crystallizer master. This meant that this group of people was probably from the Qi family. Even Yuan Shao couldn't help but frown when he saw them. There were many young people in this group of people. However, with Yun Nuoshing's extraordinary soul power, he could naturally detect how much power was contained in these young people's bodies. Some of them were even stronger than Yuan Shao's. It seemed that they were a group of god-level old monsters. In the center of this group of people was a white-haired, stooped old man. This old man was leaning on a dragon-headed cane. He looked senile and his skin was stacked layer upon layer. He was as dry as a skeleton. No one knew how old he was. Yun Nuoshing glanced at them and hurriedly led his people to the other side. At this critical moment, he didn't want to see the Qi family's upper echelons. He didn't want to be recognized. That brat over there. Just as Yun Nuoshing was about to leave, the old man stomped his dragon-headed cane on the ground. His hoarse voice was as unpleasant as the cry of a crow. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing cursed loudly. However, he didn't turn around. His body didn't even show any signs of stopping. He also didn't have any intention of speeding up. He just walked calmly as if he didn't hear anything. Everyone was stunned. "Little fellow, please wait a moment." At this moment, a young man suddenly flashed in front of them. He smiled at him and said, "Senior, you called for me?" Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing stopped in his tracks. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "May I know what Senior is looking for me for? It's not a big deal. I just wanted to take up a few minutes of your time." The young man waved his hand and smiled warmly. Yun Nuoshing nodded. The immortal energy in his body started to circulate silently. He knew that his identity had been exposed. Elder Qi. Behind him, a young man nodded at the old man and made an inviting gesture. As for the old man, he had opened his eyes at some point in time and was staring at Yun Nuo. There was even a formation floating around him, as if he was detecting something. "Senior, may I know what happened?" Yuan Qian asked nervously when she saw this. Yuan Shao also stood beside Yun Nuoshing at her signal. "Haha, it's nothing. I just want to verify something." Hearing this, the young man in front of him smiled and waved his hand. Yun Nuoshing sighed. His heart started to beat rapidly. He clenched his fists in his sleeves and quietly gathered his immortal energy. When everyone saw this, they were a little confused. They didn't know when they had offended the Qi family. Moreover, weren't they busy looking for someone in the city? Why did they have the time to stop them? When Xian saw this, she couldn't help but clench her fist. She knew that things might have really come to that point. After a few minutes, the young man waved his hand and shouted, "How is Elder Qi?" When the old man heard the shout, he silently moved his fingers. After a while, he sighed and closed his eyes. He shook his head and said, "No." When he heard the rejection, Yun Nuoshing was stunned for a moment. However, he heaved a huge sigh of relief. He felt a chill run down his spine. It seemed that the old man was a celestial master, but he couldn't see through Ling Hongjian's disguise. "Haha, I'm sorry to have disturbed you for so long." When he heard this, the young man smiled apologetically and left immediately. Everyone was puzzled. After waving his hand, Yun Nuoshing led everyone away. He was in no hurry. Although he couldn't wait to leave this place, if he was in a hurry, someone might notice something. Just as they took a few steps, the old man's eyes suddenly widened. He stared at Yun Nuoshing and the others and spat out a sentence uncontrollably. "The aura of a divine weapon." Chapter 289. When their identities were exposed, most people would try to cover it up. They might even be able to escape with their glib tongues. However, the idea was beautiful, but the reality was always ugly. What would the remaining few people do? If they didn't cower, they would just do it. Therefore, the moment the old man's voice fell, the temperature in Yun Nuoshing's heart gradually decreased. Without even thinking, the thumb and middle finger of his right hand were pressed together, and he snapped his fingers forcefully. Ta! Boom! A purple pillar of fire that was 10 feet wide erupted from where the old man and the others were standing. The blazing waves of fire increased the temperature by dozens of times, melting the floor and the nearby stones in an instant. "Go!" Yun Nuoshing's expression was ferocious as he shouted at Xian. He took out the sun god bow and aimed it at the pillar of fire. He drew the bow fully and placed a green longsword on it. Dazzling golden energy gathered on the longsword like a vortex, turning it into a golden longsword. Then, he shot it at the pillar of fire. Boom! The terrifying energy exploded, shattering the bluestone-paved floor. Cracks that were a few meters wide spread out like a spider web. The surrounding manor gates were blown away. "Little boy!" The sudden movement gave everyone a fright. Before they could react, they felt their vision tremble. Yuan Shao also pulled everyone away in an instant, leading them to escape far away. That attack contained a terrifying amount of energy. Even he would not feel good if he was hit by it. "Damn it!" Yun Nuoshing roared and jumped into the sky. He knew that this attack definitely wouldn't kill them, but he wanted to weaken them. He didn't care whether he was injured or not. He took out another longsword and placed it on the sun god bow. The purple night flame carried the energy of heaven and earth and entered the longsword, making it look like a small star. He shot it out without hesitation, leaving a long purple gold tail behind. It was very dazzling in the divine sky city. Boom! A firestorm that was tens of thousands of feet wide erupted in an instant. Looking down from above, the firestorm seemed to connect the heavens and the earth like a miracle. The firestorm raged, and the destructive ripples spread out like ripples. On the street of the stone workshop, those incomparably sturdy manors collapsed at this moment. If it weren't for the energy barrier, the many people inside would have been turned to ashes the moment they came into contact with the destructive ripples. The destructive shockwaves spread out for nearly 10,000 meters. Within 10,000 meters, nearly half of the buildings collapsed. The 100-meter-wide cracks spread out, destroying the entire area. The forest in the city was annihilated in an instant. Little boy, are you crazy? Seeing this scene, Yuan Qian couldn't help but yell at the top of her voice. But in the next moment, her pretty face turned pale with fright. In the sky above the divine sky city, Yun Nuoshing slowly opened his 6 light purple wings. Endless wind elements turned into a gust of wind that lifted him up. Purple flames circled around his body, making him look like a god that had descended. Nuoshing. Brother Nuoshing to actually. He's actually the person the Qi family is looking for? This overly obvious sign caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Now they understood why Yun Nuoshing did not want to go out. It turned out that the person the Qi family was looking for was him. He already knew. But everyone didn't understand. Why did he have to come out now? Wasn't he walking right into their trap? Go. Don't bother with me. Go back. Seeing that Yuan Qian and the rest were still standing at the same spot, Yun Nuoshing couldn't help but roar. The Yuan family's status was on par with the Qi family. The latter wouldn't dare to do anything to them. But now, he had to run away quickly. Waving his hands, Yun Nuoshing put away his 2 long swords. Light elements surged. Yun Nuoshing directly flew towards the city gate. Surging light particles surrounded him. At this moment, his speed reached the maximum. But he didn't dare to directly reach the speed of light because that would cause too much damage. Little boy. 6th uncle, quickly chase after him. Seeing that he had left, Yuan Qian hurriedly shouted. She even patted Yuan Shao and asked him to hurry up. Little girl, do you want the Yuan family to start a war with the Qi family? Yuan Shao laughed bitterly. However, he didn't hesitate and led everyone in the direction of Yun Nuoshing. Not long after they left, a few powerful and vast auras came out of the firestorm and quickly became clear. A moment later, the firestorm suddenly paused. Then, a vast energy surged out from the firestorm and forcefully reversed the firestorm, causing it to dissipate. As the firestorm dissipated, the young man who blocked Yun Nuoshing just now slowly appeared. Behind him, the Qi family members were unharmed. It's really that kid. The young man patted his charred sleeves and chuckled. Although he still had a warm appearance, everyone could hear the chilling intent contained in his laughter. Ling Hongjian is definitely with that kid. The seer called Elder Qi nodded. He had sensed the aura of the god weapon just now. It couldn't be wrong. Hearing this, the young man nodded and opened his mouth to let out a sharp whistle. Whistle! Whistle! Everyone from the Qi family, listen to my orders. Hurry to the North City Gate and capture the intruder. I don't care if he's dead or alive. The whistle spread throughout the entire Divine Sky City. At this moment, everyone looked towards the north. Combined with the fluctuation that they had sensed just now, everyone's heart skipped a beat. After sealing the city for almost a month, did they finally find that person? At this moment, countless people rushed into the sky and flew towards the north of the Divine Sky City. There were those who wanted to join in the fun, and of course, there were also those who harbored evil intentions. Everyone wanted to get their hands on a godly item like Ling Hongjian. Damn it! Hearing this whistle, Yun Nuoshing shouted angrily. The light elements became denser, and she increased her speed to a safe level. She flew towards the city gate at full speed. Now that there were people coming from all directions, she couldn't fly in another direction. She would be intercepted halfway, so she could only rush towards the north gate. However, in order to break through the barrier of the Divine Sky City, she had to be at least an emperor god. Furthermore, she couldn't conceal herself now. Since she could be found once, she could be found a second time. Perhaps the second time she was found, the Qi family would already be fully armed. She had to rush out before their combat power was fully united. Ling Hongjian can shield heaven's secrets. There's no reason for it to be found. Thinking of the scene just now, Yun Nuoshing wanted to turn around and kill that old man who wouldn't die. I don't know either, Ziyi said. Now that it was extremely urgent, she might have to use her power. Damn it, be careful that I don't cripple all of you with my sword. Yun Nuoxing gritted her teeth fiercely. She touched her forearm with her palm, and a frightening crazed expression appeared in her eyes. A wall of people had formed at the northern city gate because they had heard the howl. Many cultivators, regardless of whether they were from the Qi family or not, floated in the sky and looked towards the south. They had rushed over as soon as they heard the news. Because they were close by, they had already gathered before they arrived at Yun Nua planet. Get out of my way! Seeing a few hundred people gathering in front, Yun Nuoxing's heart sank. She took out her Fangtian halberd. Without slowing down, she wrapped the purple night flame around her and charged towards the crowd. Now, she kept the light elements, in case her second identity was exposed, and there would be even more trouble. Hearing this, the people from the Qi family on the city wall sneered. They pushed out chariots calmly, filled with arrows and crossbows. However, these weren't ordinary arrows. They were specially used to restrain cultivators. They could even injure immortal experts to a certain extent. Ta! Frowning, Yun Nuoxing snapped her fingers. The purple night flame erupted from the void and burned the chariot. Screams sounded from the city wall, and the flames in the sky seemed to connect into a wall. In the end, she stopped. The people in front of her blocked the barrier behind her. There were people from the Qi family, and there were also people who coveted Ling Hongjian. However, she couldn't start a massacre. Thinking back, she was stunned for half a day when she killed someone. How could she kill until blood flowed like a river? Everyone, I don't have any bad intentions. This is just a personal grudge between me and the Qi family. Can you let me out? Although she didn't have much hope, Yun Nuoxing still tried to negotiate, hoping that there wouldn't be a fight. Sure, just leave Ling Hongjian behind. Hearing this, everyone laughed, and the sarcasm in their voices were not concealed at all. Sigh, why do you have to force people to the end, everyone? You know that Ling Hongjian has intercourse with me. How can you take it out? Yun Nuoxing shook her head and said indifferently. No problem, just leave your life behind. A cultivator from the Qi family sneered, and the others laughed in agreement. We don't care about the grudge between you and the Qi family, but we want to see Ling Hongjian. Little brother, you're still young. Why do you have to do this? Hand over Ling Hongjian, and you'll have a vast world behind you. Yun Nuoxing sighed. It seemed that it was useless to communicate. This group of people who had seen something fishy wouldn't stop until they had a taste of it. There's not much time left. I'll get rid of it quickly. Gritting her teeth, Yun Nuoxing raised her hand and snapped her fingers. In the void, balls of purple flames suddenly exploded, forming a gorgeous purple sea of fire. Terrifying heat spread out, and the temperature of this world suddenly rose by a few hundred times. Wherever one's eyes could see, there was a sense of distortion in the space. The scorching heat spread through the air, enveloping an area of 1,000 feet around the city gate. Those who were close to it were forced to retreat by the extreme heat. Yun Nuoxing pointed the heavenly halberd at the barrier, ignoring those people. With the purple night flame, they didn't dare to casually charge over. The purple night flame poured into the heavenly halberd, dyeing it light purple. Yun Nuoxing's figure flashed, and she rushed towards the city gate, her halberd fiercely stabbing at the barrier. Bang! The dull sound of the collision caused ripples to spread out continuously. It was actually so hard that it had no boundaries. The energy was all bounced back by the soft touch on the surface. How strange! Frowning slightly, Yun Nuoxing waved her hand, and the heavenly halberd smashed onto the barrier again. The purple night flame spewed out, sticking to the golden barrier. This time, the energy wasn't reflected. The scorching heat caused ripples to spread rapidly on the barrier. Where do you think you're going? Just as the barrier was shaking a little, a young man's cold voice sounded from behind her. Following the cold voice, there was a current of energy mixed with a sonic boom. Damn it! Yun Nuoshing smacked her lips, turned around instantly, and looked at the white current of energy that was shooting towards her. She swept her heavenly halberd fiercely, and a halberd light that contained the purple night flame shot out towards the current of energy. Boom! The two currents of energy clashed together, and the white current of energy became a little illusory due to the scorching heat. Although the amount of energy it contained wasn't large enough, with the help of the extreme heat, it was able to withstand the attack, and the two currents of energy were annihilated. The Divine Sky City's barrier can withstand the full force attack of an Emperor God. Don't even think about leaving today. The young man stood at the edge of the sea of fire and laughed coldly. On his palm, a ball of golden energy slowly condensed, and there was also a ball of azure blue and fiery red energy revolving around it. 3 elements. Looking at the ball of energy, Yun Nuoshing was shocked. However, she calmed down after a while. Xian Yin had said that God-level people would choose to accommodate new elements in their bodies, surpassing the full-force attack of an Emperor God. Yun Nuoshing gritted her teeth. Ling Hongjian's greatest power wasn't enough. She could either use the swirling zither directly, or use the purple night flame to burn it all. Young man, why are you being so stubborn? You're going to die either way. Why don't you just do it? Just as he was deep in thought, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded from behind him. It made his hair stand on end. This person was so close to him, but he didn't detect him? A sharp gust of wind swept past his head. Yun Nuoshing's body turned cold. The divine light mirror flew out of his palm uncontrollably, and a beam of golden light enveloped him. At the same time, the heavenly halberd swept across in front of him. Bang! Pft! The gust of wind hit Yun Nuoshing. Although the golden energy barrier helped to block most of the damage, a small part of it still landed on his body. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, the heavenly halberd, which was covered in faint purple flames, drew a line of blood. Yun Nuoshing immediately retreated. He clutched his chest and coughed. The attack of an Emperor God of Hell should have turned him into ashes, but the divine light mirror had blocked a portion of the energy, so it wasn't enough to take his life. Little boy. At this moment Yuan Qian and the rest arrived. When they saw Yun Nuoshing spit out a mouthful of blood, they wanted to rush over. However, they were stopped by Yuan Shao. Little girl, you can't go. I'll go. Yuan Shao threw her back. Then, his figure flashed, and he instantly appeared beside Yun Nuoshing. Uncle Shao, didn't I ask you to bring them back? When he saw Yuan Shao coming over, Yun Nuoshing smiled bitterly. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His entire body was trembling because of that attack. Yuan Shao waved his hand and cupped his hands at the young man. He said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist, I'm Yuan Shao of the Yuan family. Can you let this matter go for the sake of the Yuan family? This little fellow has done a great favor for the Yuan family." When he heard this, the young man looked at Yun Nuoshing in surprise. He obviously didn't expect him to be related to the Yuan family. The Yuan family? I Chi Su have met a few of the grand elders of the Yuan family. I'll definitely apologize to them after this. The young man nodded. Then, he suddenly changed the topic and said coldly, "However, this kid killed a member of the Qi family. This matter can't be settled in private." When he heard this, Yun Nuoshing's body trembled. He sneered and said, "Pfft, if you want Ling Hongjian, just say so. Why are you bringing up those 2 pieces of trash? They deserved to die. I've already spared them once." When everyone heard how stubborn he was, they couldn't help but sigh. The Qi family had made such a big fuss today, and even a few grand elders had come. Wasn't he courting death by saying this? Fellow Taoist, must you make our relationship so tense? When he heard this, Yuan Shao's voice also sank. His precious niece wanted to protect Yun Nuoshing. It was impossible for him to remain silent. "Mr. Yuan Shao, I hope that an outsider like you won't interfere in the affairs of the Qi family. Our two families don't have any dealings with each other. Today, I'll make it clear that we must kill this kid. Think about it. At worst, our two families can just go to war. Qi Su sneered and didn't give in at all. Yuan Shao frowned. He didn't expect Qi Su to be so firm and leave no room for negotiation. Although the Yuan family wasn't afraid of the Qi family, if they really went to war, it wouldn't be good for either family. Then I'll also make it clear that the Yuan family will protect Yun Nuoxing. Yuan Shao threw caution to the wind. Yun Nuoxing saved Yuan Shui and was Yuan Qian's lover. These two relationships made him very decisive. The Yuan family is so bold. When he heard this, Qi Su's cold smile became even colder. The surrounding space fluctuated due to the fluctuation of his mood, and a powerful aura quietly condensed. When the people in the city heard this, they were a little speechless. They didn't expect that two ancient forces would go to war over a young man. Was this the first shot to fight for Ling Hongjian? Uncle Xiao, don't be like this. Yun Nuoxing tugged at his sleeve and shook her head. She said, You don't have to make the relationship between the two families like this because of me. Go back. I have a way to solve the problem here. I'll leave Xian and the others to you. Qian, that's enough. Don't be like this. If this goes on, it won't be good for the Yuan family. Don't worry, I have a way. After that, he transmitted his voice to Yuan Qian. Then, he slapped Yuan Shao's back and a gentle force directly pushed him towards Yuan Qian and the others. Little guy. When he heard this, Yuan Shao was puzzled. However, he was locked down by the force that contained the power of a divine weapon. He couldn't break free and could only watch as he was pushed back. Little boy. Seeing this scene, Yuan Qian's face turned pale. She wanted to get away and go to Yun Nuoxing's side, but Xian stopped her. Xian Yuan Qian was shocked. Although it was easy for her to break free, she didn't know why she had to do this. Sister Yuan Qian, I'm sorry. Xingxing emphasized that I have to keep an eye on you. You can't go over. Xian forced a smile and knocked Yuan Qian unconscious. Little boy. The last thing Mei Mao saw was Yun Nuoxing's proud face. She seemed to have seen him smile at her. Xian's slender neck moved and he gently hugged the unconscious Yuan Qian. He gently patted her head and handed her over to Yuan Qi and the others. Mei Mao looked at Yun Nuoxing, who was alone in the sky, and clenched her fists tightly. Xingxing, please be safe. Little brother Nuoxing, he. After taking Yuan Qian, Yuan Qi laughed bitterly. He looked at Yun Nuoxing, who was holding the halberd and had an unyielding expression. Then, he looked at her like everyone else. He didn't understand why things suddenly turned out this way. Seeing that everyone was staring at her, Xian laughed bitterly and said, I only found out about this yesterday. Although I knew that Ling Hongjian was with Xingxing, I didn't know that the Qi family was after it. Xingxing also reminded me of something last night. Everyone laughed bitterly and looked anxiously at the sky. It was difficult to mediate the current situation. They could only hope that Yun Nuoxing was fine. Chapter 290. I didn't expect you to have some backbone. Seeing that he had pushed Yuan Shao away, Qi Su glanced at him in surprise. The aura that was about to erupt was also restrained. He looked at him and laughed faintly. Do you choose to bind your hands and feet, or do you want me to cripple you and bring you back? Suddenly, Qi Su took a step to the side and a young man in black clothes slowly appeared from the void beside him. There was a long wound on his waist that kept spurting blood. It seemed like he was the one who had sneak attacked Yun Nuoxing. However, from the looks of it, he seemed to be in a sorry state because of that halberd attack. Qi Sha, you're actually injured? Qi Su was a little surprised to see this. The young man in black strength was about the same as his. He didn't expect him to be injured by Yun Nuoxing. The young man named Qi Sha didn't even frown when he heard this. He calmly wiped his wound, but he was surprised to find that the wound hadn't closed and blood was still spurting out. I miscalculated. I didn't expect him to have another divine weapon other than Ling Hongjian, Qi Sha said indifferently, not taking it to heart at all. This brat, does he have that many divine weapons? Qi Su couldn't help but frown when he heard this. First, there were 2 long swords and a ridiculously long bow, which were all divine weapons. Now, there was a halberd, which was also a divine weapon. It was a little heaven-defying. With so many trump cards, could he be a divine son of some great force? However, it wasn't too troublesome for them to offend someone for Ling Hongjian. The Qi family had never been afraid of anyone in the realm of the gods. Bah! Bind your head! Yun Nuoxing snorted with laughter. If he were to bind himself and go to the Qi family, there would be no way for him to survive. Even the swirling zither might not be able to help him escape from the headquarters of the Qi family. This brat is also a tough nut to crack. Qi Su, don't waste time. The sooner you finish him off, the sooner you can go back and report on your mission. A golden-haired middle-aged man slowly appeared beside Qi Su. His ruthless smile caused the fear in Yun Nuoxing's heart to rise to the extreme. His arms, which were as thick as an ordinary person's thighs, were wrapped around his arms. The muscles all over his body were constantly bulging under the rapid flow of blood, and his veins were wriggling like earthworms. With his muscles, he could probably beat Yun Nuoxing to death with a single punch. I only managed to find you after sealing the city for a month. If I can't take you down, I'll become a laughingstock. On the other side, another person covered in a black robe appeared. A pair of sinister eyes stared at Yun Nuoxing, making him shiver. For Netherworld king powerhouses, the Qi family sure is impressive. In order to catch a nameless brat like me, they actually mobilized such a heavy force. Yun Nuoxing's gaze swept across the 4 people and sneered. With Ziye's insight, he clearly saw the strength of the 4 people. Although there was no change in his expression, his heart slowly sank. If he wanted to deal with 4 gods, he wouldn't be able to do it without the help of the swirling zither and Ziye's strength. However, it would be fine as long as he could break through the barrier and escape. They're going all out. Even the Yuan family can't intimidate them. I reckon that the token of the Temple of Elements is also useless, Ziyi said with a faint smile. How can you still smile at this time? Yun Nuoxing's face darkened. The sinister person suddenly fixed his gaze on Yun Nuoxing's face. He narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a deep voice, "Brat, remove the thing on your face for me." The eyes of the entire city followed the voice and fixed on Yun Nuoxing. Everyone present now knew about the grudge between Yun Nuoxing and the Qi family. Those who were eager to try at the beginning suppressed those thoughts in their hearts. Although they coveted Ling Hongjian, it wasn't worthwhile to offend the Qi family. Exposed? Even Jin Jinwang didn't see through his disguise. Seeing the curious gazes from all corners, Yun Nuoxing's eyes instantly became gloomy. He really didn't expect that there would be a time when his mask would be seen through. The quality of the high-quality mask was enough to deal with some gods who were slightly weaker. At that time, even Jin Jinwang and the others didn't notice it. This old man was indeed a Netherworld king powerhouse. I told you to take it off. Seeing that Yun Nuoxing didn't move, the sinister young man narrowed his eyes and suddenly stretched out his hand. His palm stretched across the air and pulled Yun Nuoxing's face. A layer of blue and red light quietly flickered on the latter's face. In just a moment, his original appearance was revealed. At this moment, everyone was stunned. As the blue light faded, a peerless beauty appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Bright eyes, white teeth, creamy eyebrows, a tranquil little face, long and narrow beautiful eyes that contained a hint of emptiness and purity, a tall nose, a sparkling and translucent face that was as lovely and moving as an exquisite jade. Even though a few years had passed, this face still hadn't changed in the slightest. A girl? It's a girl. God! I must have seen wrongly. When they saw Yun Nuoxing's original face, everyone was shocked to the point of being absent-minded. How did a handsome young man turn into a devastatingly beautiful young lady in an instant? Was she disguised as a man? Even Jin Heng and the others were a little dumbfounded as they stared at Yun Nuoxing in a daze. However, Ming said very calmly, "Don't be so agitated. Brother is still brother. It's just that his original appearance is a little like sisters." Hearing this, everyone smiled bitterly. Even Xian didn't know what to say. This person had changed so much, Taiyuan goddess. Perhaps everyone was shocked by the change in Yun Nuoxing's appearance, but when this tranquil little face fell into the eyes of Qi Su and the others, their expressions changed drastically. They couldn't help but blurt out a name, causing the entire city to be shocked. Taiyuan goddess? The girl with the light element in the Taiyuan region? I didn't expect the Taiyuan goddess to come to this place. She's a future Heaven Meridian master. This girl's potential is astonishing. Hearing Qi Su and the others' exclamations, Jin Heng and the others were stunned again. The name of the Taiyuan goddess had spread to several other regions, and many people knew about it. Although Yun Nuoxing had revealed her true appearance, they still didn't think in that direction. After all, the Taiyuan goddess had the light element. This was something that they didn't even dare to think about. No wonder she was so fast just now. Yuan Yi muttered softly. She had just seen Yun Nuoxing disappear into the horizon in less than a blink of an eye. F***ck. When Qi Su exposed her identity, which she had tried so hard to hide, blue veins popped out on Yun Nuoxing's forehead. "Goddess, your sister, goddess. I'm a man. A real man doesn't change his name. My name is Yun Nuoxing. Not some Taiyuan goddess. And definitely not some Yusin." Hearing the chatter and thinking about the past, Yun Nuoxing was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She directly roared. "It's her. Yusin. The Divine King asked us to take special care of her. He said that we should help if we see her." Hearing this name, Jin Heng's eyes widened. He didn't expect that the person Jin Jinwang had repeatedly warned would appear in front of him. That girl named Yusin was the person under the protection of the 9 divine temples. However, what was even more unexpected was that Jin Jinwang and the others had said that it was a girl with the light element called Yusin. In the end, it turned out that she was a teenager. What? The Divine King? The Divine King of the Golden Divine Temple? Hearing this, Yao Ling and Yuan Shi were stunned. Everyone knew about Jin Jinwang's name. Hearing him say this, they were a little surprised. "Yes, the Divine King instructed us. No, it should be said that the 9 divine temples instructed us to provide unconditional help if we meet Yusin, little brother Nuoxing. It's a death order. Even if we have to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire, we have to do it." Jin Heng scratched his head and nodded. However, he was very puzzled. He didn't know why there was such an order. He guessed that even the other 8 divine temple shensis were puzzled. However, doubts were doubts. After figuring out the situation, Jin Heng took out a token from his sleeve. Ming Ming saw his confusion and said softly, "Uncle Jin and Auntie Mu said that Big Brother looks like someone's child. That's why something like this happened." Hearing this, everyone was puzzled. Jin Heng was even more puzzled. However, he didn't probe further. Since it was a death order, he had to carry it out. However, when he wanted to crush the token to call for backup from the Golden Divine Temple, he was stunned. "The Divine Sky City is sealed. I can't get anyone from the Golden Temple to come." Jin Heng was dumbfounded when he thought of the great city defense array that could withstand an attack from an emperor god. He looked at the others in a daze. Now that they were alone, they couldn't get anyone to come. They weren't powerful enough either. What could they do? Everyone smiled bitterly. "What can I do? I'm also in despair. If you call me Goddess Taiyuan again, I'll kill you." Yun Nuoxing flew into a rage. With a wave of his hand, He threw out all 18 types of divine artifact. Just as he was about to display the heaven-refining great formation, the shady young man took a step back, as if he had seen a ghost. God, this guy has so many divine weapons on him. No wonder he's so fearless. Even if it's a god underworld expert, it's hard to say who will win. This lunatic. He actually made the divine weapons recognize him as their master. Chi-Sha couldn't help but curse. In his eyes, Yun Nuoxing's actions were tantamount to suicide. Didn't she know that one person could at most make 2 divine weapons recognize him as their master? Chi-Wan? Why are you afraid? Chi-Su was a little confused when he saw the gloomy young man take a step back. Hearing this, the gloomy young man named Chi-Wan glared at him. He rubbed his chin, as if he had fallen into deep thought. This guy is dangerous. Chi-Wan pondered for a long time and said in a serious voice. Chi-Su and the others were stunned. They thought they had heard wrong and thought it was a fantasy. Legend has it that there's a kind of physique that can contain countless spiritual weapons. All the energy in the world can be used for oneself. Chi-Wan said slowly. Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing's heart sank. Could it be that someone could recognize this rare physique? Even if you have dozens of divine weapons, there won't be any backlash or burden. There's no limit to refining the energy of everything in the world. There can only be one such physique in the world. It's called. Chi-Wan paused and stared at Yun Nuoxing repeatedly. Then, he looked at the 18 divine weapons. His deep voice spread throughout the divine sky city like thunder. Spiritual divine physique. Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing gasped. She didn't expect to be recognized. Wasn't it said that the spiritual divine physique wouldn't appear more than 10 times? How could someone recognize it? Was there an end to this? Was there a meeting to judge him today? They wouldn't stop until they found out everything about him, right? This is also a living fossil. Who knows how long it's been around? Maybe they accidentally saw an ancient record. But Ziyi also lowered his voice this time. It was easy to confuse the spiritual divine physique with the spiritual divine physique. He didn't expect Chi-Wan to recognize it so quickly. When the spiritual divine physique appeared, the entire god world would be shaken. At that time, even if she had her power, she wouldn't be able to fight against the entire world. Spiritual divine physique? What? Is there such a physique in the world? I've never heard of it. However, it was also true that not many people knew what this physique was. Although the people below were discussing it, no one could say anything. This made Yun Nuoxing slightly relieved. It seemed like there was still time for them to prepare themselves mentally. Even Jin Heng and the rest were at a loss. That day in the Drunken Immortal Inn, they had discussed the current physiques with Chu Ilyan and the rest, but they had never heard of such a physique. Boom! The soles of his feet directly stepped on the void. The already prepared heaven-refining great formation directly opened up and expanded to a size of 10,000 feet. At this moment, the energy of heaven and earth became chaotic and uncontrollably rushed into the formation. The underground dragon vein also rushed up at this moment. The endless power of the stars filled the horizon and penetrated the barrier, pouring into the heaven-refining great formation. At this moment, the bright white sky actually flickered with a little bit of starlight. This time, the heaven-refining great formation had been perfected by Yun Nuoxing for a long time. It was close to half complete. The 3 formations were completely opened. One floated high in the sky, one flowed under his feet, and the last one floated in front of him, sealing half of the space. Unfortunately, it's not completely perfected. The 10,000 spirits killing formation has a total of 6 great formations, forming a 10,000 spirits domain. Even if a god entered, he would be exhausted to death. With a thought, the 18 types of divine weapons returned to their positions at the secondary formation eye. Hundreds of energy matrices weaved through, dazzling the eyes of the people watching. The spiritual divine physique, The heavens are really blessing my Qi family. After listening, Qi Su smiled faintly. He naturally knew that the origin of the divine physique could be seized. The excitement in his eyes made him directly ignore the three huge formations in the sky and on the ground. I'll be the first to beat you to death. Yun Nuoxing was furious. Chapter 291. The arrays that covered the sky were like three gigantic silver plates. One of them covered the space above and the other one below. The last one rotated in front of Yun Nuoxing. Boundless energy flowed between the two arrays. Rumbling sounds reverberated throughout the entire area. Even the air was trembling. Yun Nuoxing, Qi Su, and the others were like insignificant ants in the arrays. Don't let your guard down. These three arrays aren't easy to deal with. Qi Wen reminded them. His aura was fluctuating, and the surrounding space was also fluctuating. It was on the verge of collapsing. It's just three arrays. I don't believe he can cause any trouble. Qi Su smiled disapprovingly. The aura of the god of the underworld broke out from his body and dispersed all the energy in the surrounding space. Grandpa, I'm going to destroy you. Seeing Qi Su and the others' actions, Yun Nuoxing sneered. He changed his hand seal, and the array that covered the sky started to rotate like a millstone. The surrounding space also started to tremble violently. As the three great arrays slowly rotated, the energy of the world suddenly became extremely wild. The onlookers paled on the spot and hurriedly retreated. The overflowing energy caused their souls to feel fear. Some of the weaker ones even spat out mouthfuls of blood, their faces deathly pale. The great arrays hadn't even started to attack, but there were already people who couldn't withstand it. Heaven refining array, heaven and earth refining. With a flap of his 6 wings, Yun Nuoxing's figure appeared in the sky. Overwhelming light purple flames surged out from his body and poured into the arrays. Bang! The cry had just sounded when the entire area shook violently. A circle of pale purple fire was like a ripple as it rapidly spread from the eye of the formation to the edge. Finally, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, 1,000 feet large pale purple energy ball condensed at the eye of the formation. The energy ball was filled with an energy that could destroy the world. Refine. Yun Nuoxing's face revealed a sinister smile. He suddenly pointed his finger downwards. The three arrays trembled violently, and the entire world was filled with a violent roar. The scene in their line of sight started to vibrate rapidly. Then, the 3 balls of light purple energy gushed out like a spring. They instantly turned into 3 energy light pillars and shot towards Qi Su and the others. Attack! Seeing this unexpectedly ferocious energy, Qi Su withdrew his faint smile and slowly turned gloomy. In the end, his expression became grave. With a low cry, a black broad axe appeared in his hand. After which, it instantly grew to 1,000 feet in size. The black energy light carried a frightening energy fluctuation as it spread. Beside him, Qi Wen also unleashed his powerful energy with a grave expression. He followed closely behind the broad axe and welcomed the pale purple light pillar descending from the sky. Below, the Qi-Sha duo also unleashed their full strength, viciously colliding with the light pillars that were shooting towards them from below and in front. Boom! In that instant of collision, an earth-shattering explosion resounded through the world. The buildings below were directly shaken and collapsed. The wind pressure that carried a majestic force slapped the people outside the array tens of thousands of meters away. Some people even vomited blood and fainted. Meow. Refine. In the sky, Yun Nuoxing fiercely clenched his teeth. A small section of his waist-long light purple hair turned grayish-white. His finger continued to press downwards, and another section of his hair turned white. The broad axe that was bitterly resisting, as well as the obstruction of Qi-Sha and the others below, were all destroyed with a bang. Refine. Without any obstruction, The 3 light pillars suppressed the 4 people almost instantly at the speed of light. They collided in the middle with a loud bang. Boom! A huge firestorm that was 100,000 feet wide swept through the sky like a punishment from the heavens. A loud sound that deafened everyone rang out in the distant sky. The firestorm swept out. One end of the storm was connected to the divine sky city below, while the other end was connected to the barrier in the sky above. Even the space itself was unable to bear the weight, and countless wide cracks spread out from the divine sky city. Opening her evil spirit eye, Yun Nuoxing looked at the human-shaped Qi in the firestorm. Madness appeared on her face, and the silver-white Linghong sword appeared in her hand. The heaven-refining array shot out 2 light pillars of energy and poured them all into the thin needle, dyeing it silver-purple. Holding the Linghong sword in her hand, she viciously drew an arc in the direction of the life ripple below. Linghong sword. Sky-shaking roar. Boom! A shattering sound came from the space, and large patches of the sky collapsed. 100-meter-wide crack was cut open under the divine sky city. The sword light behind her, along with the firestorm, bombarded the barrier. Boom! The 2 huge forces collided with the barrier of the divine sky city, causing countless ripples on the barrier. However, it did not break even after a long time. Damn it! Yun Nuoxing smacked her lips. She could not continuously use such a large amount of energy to fight. Fortunately, the important parts of the heaven-refining array had been perfected, and the energy consumption had been greatly reduced. However, using the purple night flame still used up nearly half of her energy. Refine. With a sudden press of his finger, the 3 arrays started to tremble once again. 3 faint purple light pillars instantly shot out, but this time, they didn't shoot towards Qi Su and the others. Instead, they flashed past and blasted towards the divine sky city's barrier. Boom! The 3 pillars of light collided with the barrier, and the violent explosion caused a firestorm that made the heavens and earth lose their color slightly. The destructive power bombarded the barrier wave after wave, causing it to ripple rapidly, but it persevered and did not collapse. I said, "You can't escape." The firestorm behind her was forcefully reversed by the 4 vast forces. As the firestorm dissipated, Qi Su and the other 3 appeared in front of everyone again. They did not die in the terrifying firestorm. However, looking at the trace of blood at the corner of their mouths and their slightly charred robes, it was obvious that they did not feel good after being hit by Forge the Universe twice. Indeed, they can't die. The King of Hell is so troublesome. Seeing this, Yun Nuoxing shook his head in disappointment. However, he was not too upset. He was not a god, and it was already the greatest miracle that he could cause harm to a god. Brother destroyed the city again. Seeing the ruined divine sky city, Ming, who was far away, could not help but mutter. When the heaven-refining array had just appeared, Yuan Shao had already escaped far away with his people. Seeing this scene now, he was a little glad that he had not been involved. "Since you're done, it's my turn now." Seeing Yun Nuoxing's twitching face, Qi Su sneered. He stepped into the void and passed through the array like a ghost. He directly appeared in front of Yun Nuoxing and grabbed at Yun Nuoxing's head. Refine. Almost as soon as he finished his sentence, 3 huge light pillars shot out from the 3 arrays and fiercely shot towards Qi Su and the others. Boom! Qi 1 and the other 2, who did not manage to escape in time, were directly suppressed in the heaven-refining array by the 3 light pillars. They used all their energy to resist the destructive power coming from outside and could not move at all. "Give me your life!" Qi Su's speed was almost at its maximum. Ordinary people could only see a black shadow flash by, and his hand was less than an inch away from Yun Nuoxing's face. The big hand grabbed down fiercely, but he did not catch anything. There was only a patch of bright golden light particles lingering in front of him and slowly dissipating, which stunned him. "Old man, give me your life." Almost as soon as Qi Su's hand grabbed, Yun Nuoxing's body was surrounded by light particles and instantly appeared behind him. She held the Fangtian halberd in her hand and swept it towards Qi Su's head. From the looks of it, even if Qi Su was a Netherworld King expert, his head would be sent flying. Humph! After being distracted for a moment, Qi Su quickly reacted. He felt a strong wind coming from his right and snorted coldly. His figure also disappeared in a flash. He avoided the Fangtian halberd and appeared behind Yun Nuoxing. His big hand released a torrent of energy that swept towards Yun Nuoxing. Oh no! Before Yun Nuoxing could retrieve her Fangtian halberd, she felt a ferocious energy coming from behind her. If she was hit, she would definitely be seriously injured or even die. She immediately used the light element and flew far away. The light element only has speed, but not agility. Seeing a mass of light particles spreading in front of him, Qi Su sneered and moved again. When Yun Nuoxing just appeared, he stuck close to her and released a torrent of energy. Qi Su's cultivation had reached the Netherworld King level, and his speed was already comparable to Yun Nuoxing's. If this dragged on, the latter would suffer a great loss. Just as he steadied himself, without waiting for him to come back to his senses, he was greeted with a slap, causing all the hair on Yun Nuoxing's body to stand on end. He promptly used the light element, and his figure moved horizontally. However, Qi Su's figure followed closely behind like a maggot in a tarsal bone. F***ck. After chasing for a few minutes, Yun Nuoxing gritted her teeth and released a golden light from the divine light mirror from the refining heaven array, enveloping her. This momentary pause allowed Qi Su's fist to land on her waist. Poochie! This punch caused Yun Nuoxing's face to turn pale, and she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. A ruthless look flashed in her eyes as she clenched the sky piercer in her hand and fiercely hacked at Qi Su's shoulder with the purple night flame, creating a huge wound from her shoulder to her waist. Exchanging a punch for a halberd, Yun Nuoxing's body flickered with golden light as she retreated. In the blink of an eye, she appeared 1,000 meters away. This time, Qi Su actually didn't chase after her. Damn it, so troublesome. She casually wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and the cold sweat on her head. She was almost hit several times just now. If it wasn't for the energy barrier at the end, she would probably be dead by now. This was the first time she fought a Netherworld King-level expert head-on, and she was in danger several times. In the distance, Qi Su's face was gloomy. He dipped his finger in the blood on his chest and licked it. He smiled faintly and said, "It's been a long time since I was injured, but it still can't be repaired. A divine-ranked weapon would cause irreparable damage to a god. That wound had the aura of a divine-ranked weapon lingering around it, making it very difficult to repair." Yun Nuoxing clenched her teeth and took out the Linghong sword. The energy in her body surged out and poured into the Linghong sword, causing it to become extremely resplendent. Frightening spatial fluctuations spread out from the sword, and the entire space shook violently. There were even some small cracks that appeared in some places. "Xing Xing, behind you!" Just as Yun Nuoxing was about to give Qi Su a fierce blow, Xian hurriedly shouted. She was stunned for a moment. Before she could turn around, she felt a terrifying energy lick her body. Oh no! Feeling this energy, Yun Nuoxing's face instantly turned pale. She couldn't react in such a short time. At this critical moment, the immortal energy in her body uncontrollably broke out of her body and surged on the surface of her body. Just as the immortal energy surged out, a rainbow-colored energy suddenly appeared behind her. It broke through the immortal energy as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashed fiercely into Yun Nuoxing's body. Xing Xing. In the distance, Xian's beautiful face instantly turned pale when she saw Yun Nuoxing being swallowed by a large ball of energy. If it weren't for his repeated warnings, she wouldn't have been able to control herself and would have rushed over. On the other hand, Jin Hung and the others were extremely anxious. They stomped their feet in the sky as if they wanted to rush over and help, but they were powerless to do so. Buzz. Just as everyone thought that Yun Nuoshing had been swallowed by the ball of energy, the large ball of energy suddenly surged. Then, they saw the ball of energy rapidly shrink, as if it was being absorbed by something. In a few blinks of an eye, it disappeared. As the energy ball disappeared, Yun Nuoshing's figure also appeared in front of everyone's eyes. His appearance was as good as new, which made people a little surprised. His long light purple hair had returned to its original appearance at some point in time, and was no longer pale. So this is what it means to contain all the energy in the world? Her body emitted a faint fluorescent light. Feeling the abundant energy in her body, Yun Nuoshing smiled faintly. The ball of energy just now had been completely absorbed by her, and refined in her body. There wasn't a trace of obstruction. The excess was all transferred to her Linghong sword. After all, the energy of an underworld king expert was still very powerful. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Qi Su couldn't help but frown. Even Qi Sha, who had just released the energy, was a little stunned. He didn't know why his attack was ineffective. The spiritual divine body can swallow energy, and can only use physical attack. It seems like it's true. As for Qi Wen, she nodded blankly and continued to resist the 3 energy light pillars without the slightest bit of hesitation. Taking advantage of the moment when he was absent-minded, Yun Nuoshing fiercely grabbed the Linghong sword and swept it in a circle. Linghong's sword, sky-shaking roar. A dazzling light flashed in front of his eyes and the smell of death suddenly appeared in his heart. The moment Qi Su reacted, he quickly took out a black longsword. Chi! Boom! In the sky, a purple light flashed. Everyone saw that the longsword that had just appeared in Qi Su's hand was swept by the purple light. Immediately after, a soft sound rang out. A purple crack appeared on the black-colored longsword. Then, with a bang, it shattered into pieces. At the same time, the entire sky shattered. The pitch-black void was like a huge mouth that devoured people as it devoured the surrounding energy. Puchi! The black longsword didn't even have time to swing and was split by the purple light. Qi Su immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression was a little dispirited, and he hurriedly retreated with a pale face. The speed of Linghong's sword's attack had already reached the speed of light. It was so fast that he couldn't react. Even the heavens and earth were split apart by the sword, causing people's hearts to tremble. The last sword. Chapter 292. After easily shattering Qi Su's weapon, Yun Nuoshing did not show any mercy. Without saying anything, she directly grabbed the Linghong sword and slammed it into a green longsword. The energy from her body, along with her mental energy and spiritual strength, were all poured into the Linghong sword. Her beautiful purple hair swiftly turned white at a speed visible to the naked eye. Spatial rend. Yun Nuoshing took a step forward and cried out loudly. The green longsword in her hand, which was wrapped by the Linghong sword, swiftly drew a perfect arc in the sky. Don't stay on the same plane. Below, Qi Wen's eyes suddenly shrunk to the size of a needle-tip. Suddenly, she cried out in horror. However, this cry was too late. Her voice had just sounded when everyone saw a glaring colorful sword glow appear to have cut through everything on the plane. The direction was not visible to the naked eye. In an instant it had caught up with Qi Su. God King Shield. Under such a crisis, Qi Su's action was purely a reflex. It was so fast that he did not know what he had done. A huge black shield opened in front of him and blocked him behind it. Crack! The God King shield had just appeared. Before it could expand its barrier, the purple sword glow had already arrived and hacked onto the shield. Immediately, a clear shattering sound appeared. The frightening energy passed through the fragments and smashed onto the stunned Qi Su's body. Bang! The entire space emitted a sound of being overwhelmed. The shattered space formed a spatial crack that was 1,000 feet wide. It was a complete circle. Grug! The space had just shattered when two sounds of blood being vomited sounded at the same time. Two bloody mists splashed in the sky. Everyone's vision recovered at this moment. They hurriedly looked around and saw that the Linghong sword had automatically withdrawn into Yun Nuoxing's body. His face was pale, as though he had suffered a backlash. His face was covered in cold sweat. A trace of golden-red blood hung from the corner of his mouth on his beautiful face. His eyes were a little absent-minded. Far away from him, Chi Su's entire body was covered in blood as he trembled while ceaselessly gasping for cold air. A terrifying and hideous wound had appeared on his waist, and it had almost broken his waist. The wound was a few inches wide, and one could faintly see the squirming internal organs within it. Obviously, the attack from before had caused both of them to suffer heavy injuries. Xing! Xian could not help but want to rush out when she saw Yun Nuoxing's appearance. However, this time Ming stopped her. "Sister Xian, you can't go." Ming hugged her slender legs and shook his head with all his strength. Hearing this, she also came back to her senses in an instant and hurriedly stopped her feet. She was so concerned that she was in a mess. At that moment, Ziyan had already forgotten Yun Nuoxing's instructions. "Meow, your life is really tough," Yun Nuoxing panted. He licked his lips and sneered with difficulty. The Linghong sword had passed through him 3 times, causing his spiritual energy to reach its limit. He could no longer use it. If he used it again, he would suffer a backlash. However, he still forcefully summoned it. The silver light was a little blurry as he waved it at Chi Su. Chi Su, who was in the distance, trembled when he saw him in this state. He glanced at him in horror and hurriedly commanded his battered body to retreat into the city in a sorry state. As he retreated, he even took out a jade bottle and poured the medicinal liquid inside onto his wounds, even though he knew that this action wouldn't have much of an effect. Seeing that Chi Su was escaping, Yun Nuoxing did not chase after him. After using the Linghong sword 3 times, he was already a little tired and his mind was a little dizzy. Even if he chased after him, it would be difficult to stop him. Moreover, with Chi Su's injuries, it would definitely be impossible for him to recover without half a year's time. The damage caused by a divine weapon was difficult to heal. It was not impossible for him to die if he was not careful. Now, he was still using the refining heaven array to restrain Chi-1 and the other 2. It was not the right time to chase after them. He looked at the 3 people in the refining heaven array. At this moment, the 3 of them were doing their best to resist the destructive energy, so much so that they could not free themselves from what had just happened. They only had time to shout, but it was not enough to distract them. After all, in such a dangerous moment, if there was even the slightest negligence, they would fall into an unimaginable situation. Yun Nuoxing frowned and pressed his finger down on the heaven refining great formation. The great formation shook violently and 3 even more resplendent pillars of light shot out from the eye of the formation. They swiftly blasted towards Chi-1 and the other 2. From the looks of it, it wanted to refine the 3 of them alive. Buzz. At this moment, a soft buzzing sound suddenly spread throughout the entire divine sky city. Then, everyone saw that the barrier that enveloped the entire divine sky city had actually dissipated at this moment. Everyone in the city was stunned. They did not know why the barrier had suddenly dissipated, but one thing was for sure. Once the barrier dissipated, the outside world would truly be as vast as the sea and sky. At that time, with Yun Nuoxing's light element and Ling Hongjian, no one would be able to drag him out. His pupils shrank slightly. Although Yun Nuoxing had doubts in his heart, he did not care about them at this moment. He glanced at the 3 people in the refining heaven array and coldly snorted. His 6 wings flapped, bringing about a gale. Rich light element wrapped around him, and his figure turned into a ray of golden light that flew out of the divine sky city. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared into the horizon. At the same time, the three huge arrays separated and withdrew their energy. In a few flashes, they appeared on both sides of Yun Nuashing. Damn it, we actually let him escape. With the refining heaven array gone, Qi Sha and the other two, who had lost their resistance, could not help but grit their teeth as they looked at the speed that they could not catch up to. At the side, Qi Su, who was in a sorry state, appeared. His face was as white as a sheet of paper, and he constantly sucked in cold air. The intense pain made him unable to even speak. His entire body was trembling, and the cold sweat on his forehead gathered into a small stream and flowed down. The three of them looked at him in astonishment. Qi Wen's expression was even more solemn. Qi Su's strength was the same as his, the Nether King. If even he could not withstand the damage from Ling Hongjian, then if the four of them were to fight together, they would probably be injured or dead by now. That small sword is too terrifying, isn't it? Qi Sha could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Qi Su's strength was much stronger than his, but even he could not withstand it. Why did the barrier suddenly dissipate? Another person frowned and asked. They had paid a huge price to get the few ancient forces to agree to open this barrier. Normally, they would not open the great city defense array unless there was danger. Now that it had suddenly dissipated, he was very confused. Qi Wen looked around and then looked at the damaged divine sky city. With a wave of his hand, he closed some of the cracks in the ground and restored some of the collapsed buildings. They were here to represent the Qi family, so they could not suffer too much damage. Don't worry, they won't be able to escape. Qi Wen looked in the direction that Yun Nuashing had flashed past, but he was not anxious at all. He only smiled faintly. As soon as they finished speaking, they heard the sound of rushing wind coming from afar. They all turned their gazes in that direction. As expected, they saw a large group of people flying towards them from the divine sky city. The leader of the group was slightly stunned when he saw them. Then, he flashed over to Qi Su and the others. The person who came was dressed in white and looked like a young man. He was about the same age as them and looked a little delicate. However, from the vicissitudes of life in his eyes, one could tell that he was an old monster who had lived for a long time. Oh my God, that's the third elder of the Qi family, Qi Yu. Why is even he here? I heard that he has already reached the underworld emperor level. Is it necessary to make such a big fuss just to catch the goddess of Taiyuan? Seeing the arrival of this person, there was an intense cry in the city. When that person arrived and saw Qi Su's sorry state, he could not help but cry out, "Fourth brother, how did you get injured like this?" Hearing that, Qi Su trembled and looked at him. The pain made him cover his wound and unable to speak. "Third brother, is everything ready?" Qi Wen sighed and asked when he saw the person who had come. "Yes, it's done. The area around the divine sky city has been sealed. No one can enter or leave." Hearing that, the young man in white nodded and said, "Our Qi family is determined to get Ling Hongjian. This time, we will definitely not let that little brat escape." Chase. Following that, Qi Wen and the other four, as well as the large group of people who had just arrived, chased after Yun Nuashing. It seemed that they did not intend to let Yun Nuashing go. Seeing that the people of the Qi family had chased after Ling Hongjian, many people who wanted to join in the fun hurriedly chased after them. In an instant, groups of people soared into the sky from the divine sky city and flew in the direction of the Qi family. Although they knew that a battle of this level could easily destroy the world, they still wanted to see it clearly with their own eyes. Sixth uncle, chase after them quickly. Yuan Shi also hurriedly asked Yuan Shao to chase after them. When the others heard that, they laughed bitterly but did not say anything. They were also very worried about Yun Nuashing's safety. "Shi'er, I really can't help you. Hearing that, Yuan Shao hurriedly led the others and flew over. At the same time, he laughed bitterly. In a battle between the underworld kings, he, as a Shunming, could not help at all. "Alright. Just chase after them," the others shouted, making him feel even more helpless. With the 3 arrays, Yun Nuoxing streaked across the sky like a golden shooting star. Until now, he had not put away the refining sky array. He was still vigilant and felt that the disappearance of the barrier was very strange. It was not normal. It seemed like the barrier had been dissipated by someone. Damn it, what the F***ck. God damn it. While flying rapidly, Yun Nuoxing did not forget to curse the people of the Qi family viciously. The dizziness in his head made him have the urge to fall asleep. He hurriedly activated the refining sky array to extract some energy from heaven and earth and refined it into his body. He also activated the soul burning technique in reverse to convert it into soul power. However, the damage to one's soul could not be healed by simply replenishing soul power. It required time and calmness to recover. Brother Nuoxing. The heavenly halberd suddenly flew to his side and shook slightly. Lan Xen's illusory figure appeared from the heavenly halberd. When she saw Yun Nuoxing's sorry state, she could not help but be shocked. She also knew about the battle just now. Although she wanted to come out and help, she was suppressed in the heavenly halberd and could not come out. Now that Yun Nuoxing had released the suppression because he was tired, she could come out. Xen, go back, we are not out of danger yet. Seeing Lan Xen suddenly come out, Yun Nuoxing was shocked. He grabbed her hand and wanted to seal her back into the heavenly halberd again. No, I want to help you. Seeing that, Lan Xen hurriedly broke free from his hand and supported him. Traces of soul power were injected into his body, which increased Yun Nuoxing's speed imperceptibly. You. Seeing that, Yun Nuoxing laughed bitterly and shook his head helplessly. He quickly increased his speed a little. After flying at such a high speed for a few minutes, Yun Nuoxing suddenly felt that he was in danger. He suddenly stopped and the purple night flame erupted at the right time. His body also stopped extremely stiffly, as if it was nailed into the air. Looking at the empty space in front of him, Yun Nuoxing frowned and directly stabbed the heavenly halberd in front of him. Bang! The heavenly halberd had just extended for less than 5 feet when it suddenly hit something. Circles of ripples spread out from the tip of the heavenly halberd, like ripples in the water. An energy barrier? Seeing that, Yun Nuoxing frowned slightly. The purple night flame gushed out from his palm and adhered to the transparent barrier. It released an extremely high temperature and burned the barrier until it became illusory. Brat, I said before, you can't escape. Just as a hole was about to be burned in the barrier, there was a sound of wind behind him. A faint laughter also slowly sounded amidst the sound. Yun Nuoxing's heart sank. He ignored Lan Xen's resistance and forcefully kept her in the heavenly halberd. He slowly turned around and looked at the people from the Qi family who were surrounding them. His face gradually darkened, especially when he saw the person at the front. His heart twitched. Emperor of the Netherworld. Chapter 293. The Qi family is really generous. They sent 5 deities above the heavenly god realm to capture me. Yun Nuoxing's gaze swept across the few of them. Finally, his gaze landed on the dying Qi Su. Yun Nuoxing sneered. With a single thought, the heaven-refining formation rotated and appeared before him, aiming at the person in the middle. The 4 deities who had just arrived had already put him in a difficult situation. Now, there was the Emperor of the Dead. One must have a backup plan after surviving a disaster. Yun Nuoxing sighed in her heart and clenched her fists nervously. Ziyi suddenly became arrogant and refused to help at the critical moment. He was only a cultivator of the immortal level. Even if he had all kinds of tricks up his sleeves, The other party was a true king of the Netherworld. Now, there was an even more powerful emperor of the Netherworld. He felt like he was about to die. "Oh, you have the Linghong sword, so it's not a big deal for the 5 of us to come out together. If not for the fact that we were afraid that the battle would destroy the Divine Sky City and make it difficult to explain to others, you wouldn't have been able to come out from the city just now." The person in the middle nodded and said. Hearing that, Yun Nuoshing squinted her eyes and took a few steps back. She placed her palms behind her back and released the purple night flame, burning the transparent barrier continuously. "All right, enough nonsense. Are you going to hand over the Linghong sword yourself, or are you waiting for us to do it ourselves?" Chi Yu waved his hand. Yun Nuoshing's little movements didn't escape his eyes. He looked at her expressionlessly and said, "Go to hell." A cold light flashed in Yun Nuoshing's eyes. With a thought, the heaven-refining array shot out 3,000 feet long faint purple light pillars. The destructive energy waves spread out, causing Chi Su's expression to change slightly. He took a step back hurriedly. With his current injuries, he couldn't take it at all. Seeing Yun Nuoshing's final struggle, Chi Yu shook his head. He clenched his fist gently towards the 3 light pillars that were sweeping towards him like angry dragons. Gotcha! When the 2 energy light pillars were less than 3 meters away from him, they suddenly stopped. Then, a crisp sound rang out. The light pillars were like shattered glass, drifting in the air without even a ripple. Yun Nuoshing's face twitched a few times. She laughed dryly. The heaven-refining Great Array could be used to suppress the Netherworld King, but when it came to the Netherworld Emperor, it didn't have any deterrence at all. "Ha, little star, you're out of tricks." Ziyi laughed loudly in his heart when he saw this. "So why are you still smiling?" Yun Nuoshing was speechless. "Quick, save me. There's no hurry. Wait a little longer. Just hold on for another 10 minutes. Ziyi said indifferently. He even took a sip of tea, causing Yun Nuoshing's face to darken even more. "I don't know if I should say this out loud." Yun Nuoshing cursed fiercely. She took a deep breath. Although she didn't want to, for the sake of her own life, she had to hold on for another 10 minutes. She didn't know what was wrong with this girl today. After casually shattering the 3 light pillars, Chi Yu took a step forward and gently waved his hand at Yun Nuoshing. A palm that was tens of thousands of feet in size suddenly formed and blasted toward Yun Nuoshing. "Tell me." Seeing that Chi Yu was about to attack without saying anything, Yun Nuoshing's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. She roared angrily. The heaven-refining Great Array merged together and started to spin crazily. The immortal energy in her body, along with the 5 elements, rushed into the heaven-refining Great Array. Then, an extremely resplendent energy light pillar gushed out like a volcanic eruption. The huge light pillar illuminated half the sky and collided fiercely with the palm. Boom! Terrifying energy ripples surged out in all directions, and the desert below was blasted open by the energy shockwaves, creating a huge crater. The energy light pillar of the heaven-refining Great Array was annihilated. Although the palm was much weaker, it still continued to slap towards Yun Nuoshing. The huge wind caused her robes to be tightly pressed against her body. Feeling the terrifying energy contained in the palm, Yun Nuoshing's face turned slightly pale. She gritted her teeth, and the purple night flame surged out of her body and poured into the heaven-refining Great Array. She turned it into a crazily spinning fire disk, and then faced the palm head-on. Boom! The terrifying collision was like a meteorite. In an instant there was an earth-shattering explosion. The entire desert trembled at this moment. The yellow sand below was pushed far away, forming a desert basin that sunk a few hundred meters. Boom! Energy ripples filled with destructive energy spread rapidly from the point of impact, shattering the surrounding space. It actually showed no signs of recovering. Gotcha! Suddenly, a slight cracking sound came from the horizon, causing Yun Nuoshing's heart to sink. She suddenly opened her evil spirit eye, and discovered that cracks had spread out from the center of the fire disk under her palm. From the looks of it, it seemed like it couldn't hold on any longer. Is this the power of an underworld emperor? Even the heaven-refining great array can't hold on any longer. Seeing that the heaven-refining great array was at a disadvantage, Yun Nuoshing laughed bitterly. She controlled the energy of the fire disk with one hand, and the purple night flame surged out of her other hand, incessantly burning the barrier behind her. However, this time, she discovered that the defensive power of the barrier had quietly increased by a lot. No matter how much she urged the purple night flame, it couldn't appear in that illusory state just now. I've long been wary of you. In the distance, Chi-Wen was holding a circular energy barrier in her palm, and she was constantly emitting energy to strengthen its defense. Seeing her actions from afar with her evil spirit eye, Yun Nuoshing was so angry that her entire body trembled. Damn it, she had cut off all her escape routes. Crack! The cracks on the fire disk gradually increased. Although the giant palm was slowly becoming blurry, it was obvious that the fire disk couldn't hold on any longer. The goddess of Taiyuan is going to lose. In the distance, the onlookers had arrived at an unknown time. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but exclaim. As for Xian and the others who came with them, when they saw this, their expressions turned ugly. Now they couldn't call for help, and they couldn't help either. They could only watch helplessly. How depressing! Yun Nuoshing clenched her teeth. Only the roots of her gorgeous purple hair were left. The rest of her hair had been completely replaced by a pale white color. Her energy was about to wither. Little girl, I can't hold on any longer. At this critical moment, Yun Nuoshing was sweating profusely. She hurriedly cried out in her heart. The only thing she could do now was to let Purple Night take action. She was already at the end of her rope. There's no rush. Let's wait first. Purple Night wasn't in a hurry at all. However, this made Yun Nuoshing very anxious. Brother Nuoshing. In the Sky Piercer, Lan Shiner tried her best to get out. However, she was controlled by the consciousness of the Sky Piercer. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free. Grandpa, I'm going to kill you. Seeing more and more cracks on the fire disk, Yun Nuoshing's eyes revealed a hint of madness. However, she didn't want to use the swirling zither. Instead, she took out all the divine artifacts and waved her hand, covering a radius of 100,000 feet. Seeing her actions, Chi-Yu's eyelids twitched slightly. However, he didn't pay much attention to it. He waved his hand and pressed down on the fire disk again. Boom! A giant energy hand that was 100,000 feet long streaked across the sky and slammed down on the fire disk below. The sky refining array, which was already unable to bear the burden, collapsed at this moment, like a camel that had its last straw added to the camel. Bang! A crisp sound reverberated through heaven and earth as the heaven refining array shattered. Suddenly, a powerful force erupted and actually shattered the giant energy hand. The two of them were annihilated in the air and disappeared. As the two forces of energy were destroyed, the surrounding space slowly repaired itself. The sky also regained its temporary clarity. 9 heavens spirit-subduing array appear. Golden energy erupted from the depths of Yun Nuoshing's body and illuminated it as if it was made of gold. Even the meridians in her body could be seen clearly. The golden energy turned into a pillar of light that shot into the sky. At the same time, the dozens of divine artifacts that had just been thrown down all changed their direction and plunged into the sand. As soon as the divine artifacts entered the sand, a golden pillar of light that was 300 meters tall descended from the sky and enveloped the dozen or so divine artifacts. Then, a few dozen rays of golden light flickered between the divine artifacts and flew past them. They quickly drew a complicated and profound golden formation that enveloped all the Qi family members. 9 heavens spirit-subduing array, annihilation. Yun Nuoxing's expression was icy cold. Her hand seals changed rapidly. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth suddenly became violent. Along with all the energy in her body, it poured endlessly into the 9 heavens, spirit-subduing array like a tide. Her finger suddenly pointed at the golden array below. The array that was densely covered in golden lightning immediately seemed to have attracted a heavenly tribulation. Countless golden lightning bolts descended from the sky and crashed down on Chi-Yu. The expressions of Chi-One and the rest changed slightly when they saw the lightning that seemed to cover the sky. Behind them, the scalps of the Chi-Sha duo turned numb. They could feel a destructive power that was even more berserk than the heaven-refining formation in this extremely beautiful golden lightning screen. However, when Chi-Yu saw this lightning screen, he smiled faintly and shook his head. He raised his hand and propped up an energy barrier above his head to protect the Chi family. When the barrier was formed, the lightning bolts that looked like the sky-refining array suddenly pounced. Then, amidst a loud thunderclap, the lightning engulfed the barrier. As the endless thunderbolts struck the barrier, a crackling sound suddenly erupted, causing the barrier to flicker. Golden lightning leaped and flashed on the surface of the barrier, as though there were countless cracks on it. In the huge lightning screen, a thin barrier seemed to be propping up the sky. No matter how the lightning bolts jumped, they could not penetrate it. In the middle of the sea of lightning, Chi-Yu smiled faintly and expanded the barrier a little. Then, he lifted his foot and lightly stomped on the void. Boom! The golden array below Chi-Yu seemed to have been hit by something. It shook violently and the golden light that flowed on the surface dimmed a little. It flickered unsteadily. Damn it! When Yun Nuoxing saw this scene, his heart sank. Just as he was about to wave his hand and use the heaven-refining array again, a feeling of emptiness suddenly came from his body, causing him to tremble violently. His vision actually became a little blurry. Am I at my limit? Feeling her weak body, Yun Nuoxing smiled bitterly. However, she still supported the 9 heavens spirit-subduing array and resisted with all her might. Stubborn resistance. When Chi-Yu saw this, he smiled faintly. Then, he lifted his foot again and stomped on the array below him. Boom! The golden formation shook, and the golden rays of light flickered. Even the desert below was shaken by this step, as if there was an earthquake. Boom! Boom! Chi-Yu lifted his foot and stomped on the golden array below him. Every time he stomped on it, the golden light on the surface of the array would flicker and become dimmer. Gotcha! Under countless gazes, a soft sound suddenly came from the light array. Then, under everyone's gaze, the 9 heavens spirit-subduing array started to crack. It's over. When Yun Nuoxing saw that even the 9 heavens spirit-subduing array could not do anything to him, he smiled bitterly. He felt that he was about to be captured. Bam! With the last stomp, the entire golden array suddenly shattered and turned into spots of golden light that dissipated in the air. The weapons also retracted back into Yun Nuoxing's body. Kid, it's over. The moment the 9 heavens spirit-subduing array shattered, the lightning that filled the entire sky also dissipated. Chi-Yu laughed loudly and clenched his fist. A huge, crystal-like fist that looked like it was about to materialize blasted towards Yun Nuoxing like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of him. Looking at the huge fist that was inches away from him, Yun Nuoxing smiled evilly. He placed his hand over his heart and a small zither flickered in his heart at an extremely high frequency. Just as Yun Nuoxing was about to take out his whirlpool zither and play a merciless tune for these annoying fellows, a purplish-black shadow flew over from the distant sky. With a flash, it passed through the barrier and suddenly blocked Yun Nuoxing's path. The purplish-black light was resplendent and moving, causing him to be stunned. Just when everyone thought that Yun Nuoxing would not be able to escape death, the huge fist dissipated like a receding tide when it came into contact with the purplish-black light. Nothing was left behind. Everyone was stunned, including Chi-Yu. At this moment, everyone saw that a purplish-black weapon had appeared in front of Yun Nuoshing without them noticing. Yun Nuoshing also saw clearly what the purplish-black object was. He was stunned for a moment before his eyes lit up with joy. Netherworld ruins. Chapter 294. The purple-black giant sword was shining brightly, and the exquisite patterns on it were as colorful as living creatures. An ancient aura leaked out from the patterns. It had a unique aura of indomitable spirit that made the 9 heavens and 10 earths submit to it. Yun Nuoshing had a special feeling for the Nethervoid sword. It fell down with him and was his most intimate possession. It should have gone with him, but after he went to Star Luo City and subdued her weapon spirit, it suddenly left him. At that time, Yun Nuoshing even joked that the divine weapon was like a person, saying that it needed some time alone. However, this time, it stayed alone for several years, and he missed it very much. Now, the Nethervoid sword had returned, and it still looked the same as before. If there was anything different, it seemed to be more spiritual and powerful. He had stored many materials to repair the Nethervoid sword, but he didn't know how to do it. Instead, it had repaired itself. After a few years, the man and the sword met again in this place that had crossed countless distances. Yun Nuoshing was on the verge of tears. Of course, he wasn't touched, because her appearance meant that today's matter could be resolved. The Nethervoid sword, the first divine sword on the divine weapon ranking, divine sword record. It was 1 rank higher than the Linghong sword. Once the Nethervoid sword appeared, all things would return to the void. If the Linghong sword was a sword that could cut time and space, then the Nethervoid sword was a sword that could cut the world. It was forged for destruction, and it was the most terrifying sword. There was no record of its appearance in history. It could ignore spatial barriers and formations. It could enter and exit dangerous places as if it was an uninhabited place. All spatial barriers and formations could be easily broken. Nethervoid, 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 Nethervoid. At this moment, Yun Nuoshing was so emotional that she didn't know what to say. She directly hugged the Netherworld Ruins sword and rubbed her beautiful face against it. Her nose was dripping with tears and snot. After so many years, she missed it very much. Nethervoid, Nethervoid, I missed you so much. Where have you been all these years? Anyone who saw a person hugging a huge sword and crying like a dog would be puzzled. Those who didn't know would think that this person had a mental breakdown. That sword. In the distance, Xian and the others saw Yun Nuoshing hugging a purplish-black greatsword and crying uncontrollably. However, their attention was focused on the greatsword. They had never seen it before, but they subconsciously felt that she was very strong, even stronger than Ling Hongjian. Big brother, when did you get this sword? Why didn't I know about it? Seeing Yun Nuoshing's expression, Ming looked at the Netherworld Ruins sword in surprise. She was the person who had followed Yun Nuoshing the longest after Yuan. She was very proud that she knew him the best, but now, a sword that she had never seen before had appeared. She was a little upset. When everyone heard her upset voice, they all smiled bitterly. Was this something you should be upset about? Xian patted her head helplessly. This girl had always thought that she knew Yun Nuoshing better than anyone else, so it was normal for her to have this kind of mentality. Yuan Shao smiled for a while. Looking at the Netherworld Ruins sword, his expression was a little serious. He said, "It should be in the Divine Sword record, but I don't know which one it is. I don't know. I've never seen or heard of it." Hearing this, Jin Heng and the others shook their heads. They didn't know much about the divine weapons ranking. If others didn't tell them, they wouldn't know. Naturally, they didn't know that the Netherworld Ruins sword was the first divine sword in the Divine Sword record. Opposite Yun Nuoshing, Chi Yu frowned when the Netherworld Ruins sword appeared. He looked at the Netherworld Ruins sword carefully, but he couldn't recognize it. After all, before the Netherworld Ruins sword appeared, he naturally hadn't seen or understood it. No matter how old he was, he wouldn't know what it was. After the Netherworld Ruins sword appeared, Yun Nuoshing threw Chi Yu and the others to the side. She even forgot that she was a lamp that had run out of oil. She hugged her and talked endlessly, telling her everything that had happened over the years. Buzz. The Netherworld Ruins sword was helpless. Now wasn't the time to talk about this, right? No, no, no. Don't bother about that old man. Everything will be fine now that you're here. What have you been doing all these years? I was so worried. Yun Nuoshing mumbled, shaking her head. Buzz. I went to retrieve the spirit of the divine weapon. It took me a long, long time to completely retrieve it. When I woke up, I came to find you. But you've already run so far away. It took me some time to get here, but I'm not too late. Ah, you've already retrieved it? Is everything all right now? Yun Nuoshing asked with concern. Buzz. I'm fine now. I've made you worry. After that, Yun Nuoshing slowly told her what had happened over the years. It seems like you haven't been living well all these years, the Netherworld Ruins sword said. She had her own unique soul, so it wasn't a problem for her to talk. However, if this scene was seen by others, it would be very strange. A person hugging a sword and talking endlessly, what would they think? I've left you a lot of materials. I'm going to smash you back to the 12th level in one go, Yun Nuoshing said with a smile. Forget it. We'll take it slow. There's no rush. The Netherworld Ruins sword trembled and quickly said. Okay, let's take it slow. Yun Nuoshing nodded obediently. However, Ziyen and the others were greatly surprised when they saw his current, obedient girl appearance. He was usually a fearless, and indifferent little boy, so why did he become so obedient after seeing a sword today? It didn't make sense. Let's talk about the past later. Let's go out first, the Netherworld Ruins sword reminded her helplessly. Yun Nuoshing nodded and slowly let go of the bear hug. She held the Netherworld Ruins sword in her hand and felt the familiar energy flowing between them. She suddenly felt very comfortable. Although he had used up all his energy, he would be fine with her in his hand. Come on, let's continue fighting. Yun Nuoshing waved the Netherworld Ruins sword at Chi Yu and smiled brightly. With the Netherworld Ruins sword in her hand, she felt more confident. She didn't even need to use the swirling zither. Everyone was speechless when they heard her arrogant words. Do you think you have an eternal weapon? You're that confident? You even acted like you were being suppressed earlier. Chi Yu stared at the Netherworld Ruins sword in surprise. It wasn't that he didn't want to fight, but he could sense an extremely dangerous energy from the sword. The energy was so vast and terrifying that it made his heart tremble. It was as if the entire space would be destroyed if it exploded. Little star, you're quite imposing. At that moment, Zai suddenly laughed, which made Yun Nuoshing rather speechless. Zai. Yun Nuoshing scratched her head and coughed dryly. Did you know that the Netherworld Ruins sword was coming? Yun Nuoshing's face twitched as she asked. Yeah, didn't you sense it? This faintly discernible connection between the two of you has always been there. I just sensed that it was especially strong today, so I deduced that the Netherworld Ruins sword was coming. Zai giggled. Hearing that, Yun Nuoshing suddenly understood. She had always felt that the Netherworld Ruins sword was hovering around her. So this was the reason? Seeing that Chi Yu and the others didn't attack, Yun Nuoshing sneered and took a step back. She slashed at the transparent barrier behind her with the Netherworld Ruins sword without any resistance. She created a huge hole in the barrier. Purple flames shot out from her palm and fixed the hole so that Chi Yun and the others couldn't repair it. Where do you think you're going? Seeing that the barrier was broken so easily, Chi Yu was stunned for a moment. His gaze suddenly became fierce. He stomped his foot in the air and appeared behind Yun Nuoshing in a flash. He grabbed at the top of Yun Nuoshing's head. Can't stand it anymore? Yun Nuoshing sneered and turned around instantly. Looking at the hand that was enlarging in front of her, she grabbed the Netherworld Ruins sword and slashed at Qi Yu's arm. At the same time, the light elements in her body flowed quietly. Rip! The sound of his robe tearing was particularly loud in the silent sky. Everyone saw a flash of golden light. Then, Qi Yu's entire arm fell off. Blood splattered in the air. In front of him, there was only a ball of light particles that slowly dissipated. The sudden pain caused Qi Yu's vision to darken. His heart was filled with shock. Although he knew that the strange purplish-black sword was a divine weapon, he didn't expect it to be able to cut off his arm so easily. One had to know that the body of a Netherworld Emperor was very tough. Even a normal divine weapon might not be able to cut off an arm directly. The third elder of the Qi family is injured. He lost an arm in one move. Isn't he a Netherworld Emperor? How could his arm be so easily chopped off by someone else? This doesn't make sense. A divine weapon. No, a divine weapon. Only a divine weapon can easily hurt a god. That sword is an eternal divine weapon. The moment they saw Qi Yu's arm fly off, everyone was in an uproar. A Netherworld Emperor was already a god at the top of the pyramid. They were the kind of gods who could make many first-rate forces piss their pants with a stomp of their feet. However, today, a Netherworld Emperor had his arm cut off right in front of them. Although they knew that it was all due to the sudden appearance of the giant sword, who could say that it wasn't Yun Nuoshing's ability to control such a divine weapon? Grabbing the severed arm, Qi Yu retreated quickly. He couldn't believe his eyes. How did the person who was surrounded by them like a prey suddenly grow dragon teeth and bite them back? However, the intense pain told him that everything was real. It wasn't a dream. A divine weapon. At this moment, even he reacted. Only a divine weapon could cut off his arm so easily. Now, he felt that it was ridiculous. A divine weapon was a divine weapon. An ordinary person would have accumulated merit for several lifetimes just to get one. However, Yun Nuoshing had two divine weapons? What the F***ck? Qi-1, let's go. Open the array. Let's go back. Holding his bleeding severed arm, Qi Yu said in a deep voice. The sky was very quiet now. Everyone felt a little dizzy when they heard this. A god who was high up in the sky now said such words in the hands of a little immortal-level cultivator. They were still in a daze. Qi-1 was stunned. Seeing his injury, he knew that there was no time to waste, so he quickly made a hand seal. Hey, you disturbed my peace, exposed my identity, and exposed my constitution. Why are you leaving now? In the distance, Yun Nuoshing saw Qi-1's actions and sneered. Since you're here, stay. Yun Nuoshing sneered. He raised the Netherworld Ruins sword high and slashed at Qi Yu fiercely. A purplish-black sword ray that was thousands of feet long shot out from the tip of the sword and turned into a crescent moon. In a flash, it appeared 10 feet in front of Qi-1. It looked like he wanted to cut off their escape route. The vigilant people at the side hurriedly formed an energy shield in front of Qi-1. As soon as the shield was formed, the sword ray slashed at it fiercely. Bang! A vast amount of energy burst out, and the sword beam directly broke through the energy barrier. It was not affected at all, and directly appeared in front of Qi-1. The terrifying energy caused his face to turn pale, and he was stunned for a moment, forgetting to dodge. Just as the sword ray was about to split Qi-1 in half, a crimson saber suddenly appeared. It quickly expanded to thousands of feet long and slashed at the sword ray. Clang! The purplish-black sword ray and the crimson saber collided. An earth-shattering sound resounded in the sky, making everyone's ears ring. After the extremely powerful sound wave spread out, the world suddenly fell into a strange silence. In the sky, circles of purplish-black ripples spread rapidly in the space, making the space tremble like wave. Boom! An unparalleled energy shockwave suddenly burst out from the point of contact between the two, sending everyone flying. The desert below seemed to be stacked with waves of sand that were pushed thousands of meters away. And that crimson saber was completely obliterated by the shockwave. At this moment, even space completely collapsed. Even the void shattered, and a deep yellow spacetime barrier appeared. At this moment, even the two stars in the sky paled in comparison. Even Yun Nuoshing was sent flying by the terrifying wind pressure. He quickly steadied himself and looked back. He found that the area seemed to have been scorched, and the sand below had melted into magma. This made him a little dumbfounded. Why did this casual strike make it seem like the world had been destroyed? Spiritual divine physique, just you wait. We won't give up. The news of the divine physique's birth will spread throughout the entire divine realm. At that time, all the ancient forces will come out in full force. You will never have peace. At that time, I will kill you with my own hands. In the distance, there was only a huge spatial crack that was slowly dissipating. However, Qi Yu's pained and angry roar penetrated the space and reverberated in this world. Hearing this roar, it was obvious that the impact just now had caused them to be seriously injured. Then wait until my spiritual divine physique is completed, and I will personally destroy the Qi family. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing sneered. Today's grudge had been formed, and there was almost no possibility of reconciliation between the two of them. At this moment, he wanted to pursue, but he had no strength left. If it weren't for the Nethervoid sword and Violet Knight transferring energy to him, he would have already fallen. An arrow at the end of its flight, Yun Nuoshing's hand, which was holding the Netherworld Ruin Sword, was shaking. 2 streams of golden-red blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Yun Nuoshing grinned as his body fell backwards in the air. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.